Chapter 22:11. Chu Luiwei stopped in his tracks. Ming Shu chuckled and replied, "That's right. Miss Mu's news is really fast. The second master has just returned, and you already know." Mu Yafeng smiled gently. "The second master has been away for several years, and we can't help but miss him. May I know if he's upstairs now? I have something to discuss with him." Ming Shu immediately said, "He's here. Miss Mu, please wait for a moment. I'll go ask for instructions for you." "Sorry to trouble you, Lord Ming. It's just a small matter, not worth mentioning." Ming Shu went upstairs after he finished speaking. The entire treasure pavilion was under their control, so they didn't have to worry about anything happening after leaving for a while. However, after Ming Shu went upstairs, the people on the first floor were surprised and started discussing in low voices. "The second master is back? When did this happen? Why didn't I hear about it? It seems to be just a few days ago. We don't know the details, but there have been rumors in private. However, the second master hasn't shown up since he came back. He left for a long time this time, right? I don't know where he went, but some people guess that he left the Illusion God Palace." "Shoo. We don't dare to talk about this kind of thing. Besides, it's not important. What's important is that the second master is back, so the treasure pavilion's main warehouse should be open now, right? Since he left, there are only 2 small warehouses left in operation, and many things are very scarce." "That's true. But then again, Mu Yafeng's reputation is really big. She directly asked to see the second master as soon as she arrived. If it were me, I wouldn't have such confidence. After all, she's the most promising person to complete the star path, and she's highly regarded by the 7th Divine Envoy and the others. Naturally, she's different from us." Mu Yafeng stood there with her hands crossed and placed on her lower abdomen. Her expression was calm. Only the subtle ripples in her eyes could be seen, and there was a hint of loftiness. After a while, Ming Shu came down from upstairs. She looked up, and a smile appeared on her lips again. "Lord Ming, can I go up now?" However, Ming Shu's expression was a little strange. He hesitated for a moment and declined tactfully. "Miss Mu, the second master said he's not feeling well today, so he won't see any guests. If you have anything to say, you can pass it on to me." As soon as he said that, the entire first floor fell silent. The smile on Mu Yafeng's face instantly froze. "Lord Ming, what do you mean by this?" Yu was also in a very difficult position, but he didn't dare to disobey the second master's words. "Second master has indeed been working hard recently. Please forgive me." He was determined not to let her go up. Mu Yafeng pursed her lips. In the past, when she came, the second master would never refuse to see her. As for not feeling well, it was just an excuse. He just didn't want to see her. However, she didn't seem to have offended that person, did she? Mu Yafeng thought about it but still could not figure it out. She could only suppress these thoughts for now. "Actually, I came here today mainly because I haven't seen second master for a few years, so I came to pay you a visit. But since it's still inconvenient for you, then, forget it." Zhao heaved a sigh of relief, and the smile on his face became much more sincere. "Thank you for your understanding, Miss Mu. Then you can take a look around. If there's anything you like, just tell me." Mu Yafeng smiled faintly. "You're too kind. Is the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire on the second floor of the treasure pavilion still there?" Ming Shu said, "This? It's still there." The mythical diagram of fire was divided into 2 volumes. It recorded thousands of Grandmaster-level Xian formations and had rather detailed annotations. It was extremely beneficial for the cultivation of Xian masters. In comparison, the first volume was simpler, while the second volume was much more difficult. Because of this, the price of the second volume was several times that of the first volume. Even for the people of the Illusory God Palace, it was an absolutely sky-high price. Mu Yafeng had bought the first volume before. It was precisely because of that she could greatly reduce the time it took to understand the Xian formations on the Star Passage. A few days ago, she was trapped again and had no choice but to give up and return from the Star Passage. She studied it alone for several days, but she had no clue at all. At this time, She realized that the seventh divine emissary's words were not an exaggeration. If she really did it herself, she might not succeed even after a few years. However, she really didn't want to wait that long, so she thought of the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire. Although this thing was very, very expensive, and buying it would definitely make her bankrupt and even cause her to be in debt. However, she still made up her mind. That was what she was here for today. Hearing that the thing was still there, she revealed a smile. Since it's still there, I want to go to the second floor and buy it. As she spoke, she lifted her foot and was about to go to the second floor. However, Zhao suddenly reached out and stopped her. Miss Mu, wait. It's not good for you to go up to the second floor. Mu Yafeng never thought that she would be stopped here and was stunned for a moment. But the second floor of the treasure pavilion was indeed not a place that anyone could go up to. However, she was not included among these people. In the past, she had been to the treasure pavilion many times, and she had always been able to freely enter and exit the second floor. Why was it suddenly not possible this time? Is Lord Ming worried that I can't afford the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire? That's not it. Zhao rubbed his hands, as if deliberating over his words. It's just, I'm afraid I can't sell the second volume to you. Mu Yafeng was stunned. Ming Shu paused for a moment, then explained. The second master means, from today onwards, only the first floor will be open. The second and third floors will be closed for the time being. Similarly, the items inside will not be sold. The second volume of the mythical diagram of fire is on the second floor, so it's naturally included. Please go back. Mu Yafeng had never been treated like this. Not only did he not allow her to go up to the second floor, but he also did not intend to sell the items. Her face turned cold. Lord Ming, the treasure pavilion is open for business. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for you to reject people like this. Although the people beside her did not say anything, their expressions showed that they agreed with Mu Yafeng's words. Although there were many good things on the first floor, everyone knew that the best were on the second and third floors. Now that they were not allowed to go up and they were not even selling the items, what was going on? Zhao curled the corners of his mouth, and his tone was polite but did not allow for any rebuttal. Miss Mu, it seems that it's not up to you to decide how the treasure pavilion does business. But Sister Yafeng isn't wrong. How can you open the door and not sell things? It's not like we can't afford it. The woman standing next to Mu Yafeng could not help but mutter in a low voice. However, the room was very quiet at this time, and her words were heard clearly by everyone present. The last trace of a smile on Zhao's face dissipated. With one hand behind his back, his voice turned cold. This is the first master's intention. Mu Yafeng was shocked. A chill rose from the soles of her feet and rushed to the top of her head. Chapter 22:12. This treasure pavilion was founded by the first master. Even if everything here was burned down, the first master would only be there for the show, let alone closing it down. Miss Mu, I know that the seventh divine emissary thinks highly of you, but even if he came here personally today, he can't go up to the second floor. Please consider it carefully. Zhao was trying to persuade them nicely, but he was very unhappy with Mu Yafeng and her servant's attitude. The reason why he was being courteous was because of Jin Yunlai. Unfortunately, Mu Yafeng didn't seem to realize this. She hadn't even finished the star path, but she was already putting on airs. It was really funny. Although Ming Shu didn't say these words clearly, his expression couldn't be more obvious. Mu Yafeng only felt her face burning as if she had been slapped hard. She had been in the illusory god palace for so many years. Because of the seventh divine emissary's support, the others had always been very polite to her. This was the first time she had been rebuked like this. However, the other party was someone she couldn't afford to offend. Then we'll come back another day. Miss Mu, I won't see you off. Ming Shu's casual words almost choked Mu Yafeng to death. She hurriedly said goodbye and pulled her servant away. The atmosphere on the first floor instantly became very awkward. Soon, the others left one after another. Soon, only Chu Luiyue and the other two were left on the first floor. It wasn't that they had other ideas, but they didn't want to make a wasted trip. In any case, the master and servant trio were quite generous. Master, I want this, and this. Little Hachi pointed at a few herbs in the long cabinet. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows slightly. You know how to choose. All of them were expensive items. Little Hachi blinked. Master, will you buy them? Chu Luiwei gently knocked her forehead. As soon as he said that, Mingshu's voice was full of praise. This lady has good eyesight. Chu Luiwei turned his head and saw that Mingshu had unknowingly arrived beside them. At this moment, the coldness on his face had completely disappeared and was replaced by a warm smile. These are all top-notch medicinal herbs. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Wasn't this Lord Ming very arrogant just now? Why did she suddenly become so enthusiastic in the blink of an eye? With Zhenbao Pavilion status, it seemed that there was no need for them to praise themselves like this, right? However, these thoughts only flashed through his mind. Since the other party had given her so much face, she naturally welcomed it. Chu Liuyue's red lips curved slightly. The things in the treasure pavilion are naturally the best. He smiled and cupped his hands. This humble one has long heard of Miss Shangguan's great name. I'm really happy to see him today. Miss Shangguan, please take a look. If there's anything you want, just tell me. If there wasn't any here, there were plenty in the storehouse. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Isn't this Lord Ming a little too enthusiastic? This is completely different from his attitude towards Mu Yafeng and the others just now. Thank you, Lord Ming. We came here today because of your reputation. As for what we want to buy, we'll have to take a look for a while. Why don't you go ahead first? Ming Shu chuckled. No hurry, no hurry. Aren't there only a few of you left in the shop now? Chu Luiwei was speechless. Thank you in advance, Lord Ming. What are you thanking me for? Ming Shu waved his hand and walked to the long cabinet filled with precious medicinal herbs. Look, these Futian orchids are all thousands of years old. They were just picked and are very fresh. And this spirit bamboo is specially cultivated with ice spring irrigation. Its medicinal effect is very pure. Little Hachi's beautiful eyes sparkled. Mistress, these are all really good things. Speaking of which, they are much more precious than the soul sky fruit. Chu Luiwei coughed. Of course, she knew that these were all rare treasures, but the price. May I ask Lord Ming, if you want to buy these things, what do you need to exchange for them? Before coming, Xiao Ran had already said that Precious Treasure Pavilion didn't accept money and only accepted barter. Although she had many things on her, there weren't many that she could take out to exchange. Ming Shu laughed. If Miss Shangguan wants these, you don't need to exchange for anything. You just need to do me a favor. What favor? I heard that Miss Shangguan is extremely talented in Xian masters, so I would like to ask you to copy a scroll for me. Chu Luiwei immediately understood something. A Xian formation diagram? That's right. Ming Shu nodded. Actually, this wasn't anything new. There were countless Xian formations in this world, but it was impossible for ordinary people to engrave a Xian formation for future generations to see and comprehend. Only Xian masters who were strong enough could do it. But there are so many Xian masters in the illusory God Palace. Who knows how many of them are stronger than me? Why did Lord Ming choose me? Ming Shu smiled. Naturally, it's because you are currently the most talented person in the illusory God Palace. Seeming to have seen her confusion, he continued to explain. Before you, the most outstanding person was Mu Yafeng, but your performance on the star path had already completely crushed her. So, we are more at ease if we leave this matter to you. In other words, Mu Yafeng didn't have the qualifications. Chu Luiwei pondered and felt that this wasn't unreasonable. You want me to copy the Xian formation diagram of a great Xian master? No. Ming Shu shook his head and said word by word. It's the mythical flame diagram. Chapter 22:13. On the second floor. Yan Gu pressed his ear against the door and held his breath as he listened. Hearing Zhao's words, he pounded his chest in frustration. This idiot! How can he be so direct? He had only asked Zhao to test the waters and see if he could send out the mythical flame diagram quietly. How could it be so obvious in the end? Even an idiot could tell that something was wrong. He was already upset that his master did not allow him to show his face. Now that he asked Zhao to do something on his behalf, he made it so difficult. Immediately after, he heard his master's wife only pause for a moment before she quickly agreed. Okay. She did not seem to hesitate and did not ask anything. Ming Shu immediately said, "Please." Yen Gu slapped his forehead and took a deep breath. He had not been back for a few years, but this idiot did not improve at all. He could not count on him, but fortunately he had given it away. He would take it one step at a time. "Miss Shangguan, please follow me." Hearing that the two were about to go upstairs, Yen Gu quickly took a few steps back and completely concealed his aura. After taking 2 steps, Zhao suddenly thought of something and looked at little Hachi and Hua Shuangshuang. "Well, if you have taken a fancy to anything, just take it. I only need to make a list. In the future, these will all be on Miss Shangguan's account." The few of them were smart people, so they immediately understood what he meant. Only Chu Luiyue could go up to the 2nd floor. Chu Luiyue did not mind and looked at the two. "Just take your pick. You can go back when you're done. I might be a little late." Hua Shuangshuang said, "Master, we have nothing to do when we go back. Why don't we just wait here?" Chu Luiyue smiled and shook his head. "No need. I'll go back when I'm done here." Seeing Chu Luiyue's firm attitude, Hua Shuangshuang and little Hachi could not stop him and could only agree. In a place like Zhenbao Pavilion, there was no need for them to do anything in private, so there was nothing to worry about. Little Hachi was indeed lacking in medicinal herbs. Seeing that she had the support of her master, she didn't hold back and directly took away half of the wall. Chu Luiyue. "Little Hachi, I remember that you took a lot from Sanson. Why do you want so much now?" Little 8 blinked and smiled enchantingly, saying coquettishly, "Master, you know that I'm very picky when it comes to these kinds of things. Naturally, I'll use them faster." Chu Luiyue tapped between her eyebrows. Alright, just take it away. If it's not enough, we can always come back again." Little Hachi's beautiful eyes sparkled. "Master, the way you spend money for me is the most beautiful." Chu Luiyue was already immune to her tricks. After Zhao finished registering, he sent the two of them away. Phew! Seeing the two of them leave with satisfaction, Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh of relief. Was it easy to raise a family? "Miss Shangguan, please come with me." From beginning to end, Zhao was very patient. Chu Luiyue nodded. "Thank you, Master Ming." As they spoke, the two of them walked toward the stairs in the middle. Chu Luiyue came to the front and took a look. The stairs didn't look any different from the stairs in other places. She originally thought that there would be a barrier or something. However, after thinking about it carefully, she felt that Zhenbao Pavilion was more mysterious and powerful. There were no barriers or defenses, and there weren't many people here. It looked casual, but in fact, it was all based on powerful strength and background. "Miss Shangguan, please." Zhao turned sideways and raised his hand, inviting Chu Luiyue to go up first. Chu Luiyue was about to move when she suddenly heard a surprised voice from the door. "Master Ming, what are you doing?" This voice was somewhat familiar. Chu Luiyue half turned and looked back, raising her eyebrows slightly. Standing outside the door and looking over here with a shocked expression, who else could it be but Mu Yafeng? "Miss Mu, why are you here again?" Seeing that it was Mu Yafeng, the smile on Zhao's face faded a lot, and his tone was no longer as polite and eager as when he was talking to Chu Luiyue. Mu Yafeng opened her mouth. On the way back, she suddenly remembered that she still lacked some herbs besides the mythical flame diagram, so she turned back. However, she didn't expect to see such a scene as soon as she arrived. What were they doing? If she didn't hear wrongly, Zhao was actually inviting that Shangguan Yu upstairs? She had just been rejected this request. It had only happened in the blink of an eye. She saw clearly that Zhao's attitude toward that Shangguan Yu was several times better than his attitude toward her. Even when she came here in the past and Zhao treated her politely, she had never received such treatment. Mu Yafeng's mind was in a mess, and it took her a while to find her voice. "I just wanted to come back to buy some herbs, but..." "Master Ming, didn't you just say that the 2nd and 3rd floors are no longer open to the public from today onwards? What's going on now?" She tried her best to suppress the surging emotions in her heart, but her words still revealed some displeasure and anger from being deceived. Zhao stepped forward and said indifferently, "Yes. I did say that it's not open to the public, but Miss Shangguan is not an outsider." Chu Liyue's eyelashes trembled slightly. Mu Yafeng's face instantly turned pale. "Master Ming, your words. Miss Shangguan is extremely talented in mystic cultivation, so we have specially hired Miss Shangguan to duplicate the mystic formation diagrams in the treasure pavilion. In this way, Miss Shangguan is naturally not an outsider." Mu Yafeng almost suspected that she was hearing things and laughed in anger. "Master Ming, are you sure?" "I admit that she is indeed very outstanding, but with her current level, she doesn't have the qualifications to do so, right? Actually, it wasn't the first time the treasure pavilion had done such a thing. After all, many of the mystic formation diagrams here were very precious, and there were many people who wanted them. The best way was to ask someone to duplicate them. However, this matter involved a lot of things, so the treasure pavilion was usually very strict when it came to the personnel review. When Mu Yafeng wanted to obtain the mythical flame diagram, she had also taken the initiative to mention this, but she was still rejected in the end. She never expected that the treasure pavilion would directly invite Shangguan Yu, who wasn't even a great grandmaster and didn't even have a bloodline totem. If this news were to spread, who knew how many people would be taken aback? If Miss Shangguan isn't qualified, then I'm afraid that no one in the illusory god palace is qualified. She chuckled. "Miss Mu, allow me to remind you. When you walked the Star Road, it took you a total of 27 days to walk from the Heavenly Gate to the Grand Mystic Monarch Division's Mystic Formation area. Moreover, this doesn't include the several times you went to the Star Road to study those mystic formations separately. And Miss Shangguan went straight to the illusory god palace when she just arrived. She didn't even use up the remainder of your time. What position do you have now to point out that she isn't qualified?" Chapter 22:14. Mu Yafeng had never thought that there would be a time when she would be humiliated like this. Even if the other party didn't say a single vulgar word, even if the other party's attitude was still polite and courteous. But those words still made her blush and extremely embarrassed. Because they were all the truth. In the illusory god palace, geniuses were as common as clouds. The fact that she could have her current reputation and status was enough to prove that she was indeed very outstanding. But something like talent was most afraid of comparison. If you were first, then others naturally had nothing to say. But if one day a person suddenly appeared and easily crushed you, how would you feel? Mu Yafeng didn't like Chu Liyue from the start precisely because she knew too well what kind of shocking talent it meant to be able to complete that segment of the Star Road in just a few days. Previously, she could still comfort herself that she was just a great mystic king teacher and there was nothing to take to heart. But now, Qi's actions were equivalent to exposing everything. It bluntly reminded her that she was indeed inferior to Qi Wuyao. Although Miss Shangguan is only a great mystic king teacher now, I can foresee that she should be able to break through to great grandmaster before long. Miss Mu, you are also a mystic master, so you should know how important talent is to a mystic master. Martial artists could perhaps make up for their lack of talent through hard work, but mystic masters really couldn't. Without comprehension and spirit energy, even if you stared at a Xian formation diagram for 10 or 100 years, you still wouldn't be able to comprehend it. The higher the level, the more obvious the difference in talent between mystic masters was. This was also why they had rejected Mu Yafeng's request. There was no other reason other than they didn't think highly of her. Although Ming Shu didn't say these unspoken words, how could Mu Yafeng not understand? She slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. "Oh right, Miss Mu said you wanted some medicinal herbs? It's nothing important. Since Lord Ming is busy today, I'll come another day." Mu Yafeng gritted her teeth and tried her best to keep her expression calm. "Then I won't send you off." Lord Ming smiled and looked at Chu Liyue. "Please." Chu Liyue nodded slightly and walked up the stairs. Mu Yafeng turned and left. The staircase in the middle of the treasure pavilion spiraled upwards. The entire staircase was hollow and made of high-quality wood. Walking on it, one could even smell the faint fragrance of wood. Chu Luiwei walked up step by step and soon arrived at the second floor. The layout of the second floor was very different from the first floor. There were no treasures here. Instead, there were private rooms. The privacy was very strong. Miss Shangguan, the things are in the innermost room. Mingshu also followed and led Chu Luiwei away. Chu Luiwei scanned her surroundings, but she didn't say anything as she followed him forward. Mingshu opened the door. Chu Luiwei walked in. Although the room wasn't big, the decorations were elegant and grand. Everything that could be seen and used was of the highest quality. Mingshu went to the bookshelf by the wall and took down a wooden box. He turned around and handed it to Chu Luiwei. The first and second volumes of the Mythical Flame diagram are here. You can start with the first volume. Everything you need for copying is on the table over there. Feel free to use it. Chu Luiwei looked in the direction he pointed. There were indeed many things on the table by the windowsill. She took the box, thought for a moment, and asked, "Copying Xian formations requires a lot of time and energy. Especially since my realm isn't high enough, I might not be able to complete it immediately. Miss Shangguan, you don't have to worry about this. We all know that this is a delicate job and can't be rushed. You can come again when you have time. As for the things that Little Hachi and Little Hachi took away just now." He took out a list and quickly looked through it again. He chuckled. "You only need to copy 10 great Xian King Masters' Xian formations. Of course, if it's a great Grandmaster level Xian formation, one is more than enough." Chu Luiwei calculated for a moment. This price wasn't expensive. If it was someone else, they might find it a little troublesome. However, this wasn't a problem for her. Of course, she also wanted to take a look at the Mythical Flame diagram and see what kind of secrets it hid. "If there's nothing else, then I won't disturb you anymore." As she spoke, she planned to leave. But Chu Luiwei suddenly called out to him. "I still have a presumptuous request. I wonder if it's convenient for Lord Ming to help? Just say it." "If I can help, I definitely won't refuse," Ming Shu immediately said. Chu Luiwei looked at him, the corners of her lips slowly curling up. "I admire Treasure Pavilion's second master very much. I wonder if I have the chance to meet him?" Ming Shu didn't expect her to say this and was momentarily stunned. "Second master hasn't been feeling well recently. He probably can't meet you." "I know. What I mean is, when it's convenient for second master, I want to meet him and thank him in person." Ming Shu hesitated for a moment. Since Chu Luiwei had already put it this way, there seemed to be no reason to refuse. "Then, I'll ask second master for instructions later. However, Miss Shangguan will probably have to wait a little longer." "It's fine." Chu Luiwei had already guessed that this second master wasn't easy to meet. Ming Shu's answer was also within her expectations. "I can wait." Only then did she relax and turn to leave. The room door was closed. Chu Luiwei was the only one left in the room. She stared at Ming Shu's departing figure for a while before retracting her gaze and walking over to open the wooden box. 2 books were lying quietly inside. Chu Luiwei took them out. On the surface, it didn't look much different from ordinary Xian formation diagrams. Chu Luiwei first picked up the first volume and flipped it open. What entered her eyes was a great Xian Emperor Master Xian formation. Very familiar. Chu Luiwei wasn't surprised and turned to the second page. Still very familiar. Her expression didn't change as she continued to turn to the third page and smiled. Splitting a great Xian Master Xian formation into several great Xian Emperor Master Xian formations. You really know how to have fun. Her tone was light, and there was a smile on her lips. Then she unhurriedly flipped through the first volume. Indeed, as the rumors said, the Xian formations on this book were highly overlapping with those on the star path. Moreover, each Xian formation was marked with annotations. Some had more, some had less. However, it was extremely useful for comprehending Xian formations. Chu Luiwei leaned back in her chair and picked up the second volume. Heh! Mu Yafeng left the treasure pavilion. She wanted to go back directly, but there seemed to be something stuck in her chest, making her feel suffocated and uncomfortable. The scene just now kept replaying in her mind, stabbing at her temples until they hurt. Finally, she took a deep breath turned around, and headed in the direction of the illusory god palace. Jin Yunlai looked up from her book and frowned slightly. Mu Yafeng? What is she doing here? Chapter 22:15. I don't know. I just happened to come back from Herb Mountain and bumped into her outside the palace. Shu Jing shook her head. Judging from her complexion, she doesn't look well. Even though Mu Yafeng hid it well, Shu Jing had been the 8th divine emissary for so many years. She should be able to tell what she was thinking. Jin Yunlai thought for a moment, then got up and walked outside. In the entire Illusion God Palace, there were very few people who were qualified to enter and leave the Illusion God Palace freely. Even if Mu Yafeng was about to finish the Star Path, she still needed to wait outside the Illusion God Palace for instructions. By the way, I heard that someone broke Mu Yafeng's record a few days ago? Shu Jing suddenly thought of something and asked. If I remember correctly, it seems that this person's speed is faster than yours? But that was a long time ago. Moreover, divine emissaries were highly respected. Ordinary people would not casually pick someone and compare them to divine emissaries. Jin Yunlai said. That person is called Shangguanyu. Her talent is not bad, but unfortunately, she doesn't have a bloodline totem. Shu Jing's expression changed slightly. No totem? She suddenly thought of the fairy-like woman she met at Herb Mountain. It seemed that they were together? Shu Jing's expression became a lot calmer. I see. That's indeed a pity. Jin Yunlai noticed that her tone was a little cold, but she didn't care. Arriving at the gate, Jin Yunlai saw Mu Yafeng at first glance. Mu Yafeng immediately went forward and bowed. Greetings, 7th Divine Emissary. Aren't you studying the Xian formation? Why are you here today? Jin Yunlai went straight to the point. Mu Yafeng lowered her head slightly and said, As you said, it's indeed very difficult to crack the Xian formation. I wanted to go to the treasure pavilion to look for the 2nd volume of the mythical flame diagram. Jin Yunlai narrowed her eyes but didn't say anything. In the Illusion God Palace, many Xian masters yearned for the mythical flame diagram, and many of them bought the 1st volume. However, the 2nd half of the book was very expensive, and very few people could afford it. Mu Yafeng was determined to win the Star Path, so it was normal that she was willing to pay such a huge price to get it. Lord Ming refused to sell the 2nd half of the scroll. Furthermore, he said that from today onwards, the items on the 2nd and 3rd floors would no longer be sold to the public. Jin Yunlai frowned. So sudden? What's the reason? In his memory, Zhenbao Pavilion rarely acted like this. Lord Ming only said that the 2nd master is not feeling well, and this is also the 1st master's intention. Upon hearing those words, Jin Yunlai's expression changed. In that case, you should give up on the 2nd half of the mythical flame diagram. Of course, I know that. Mu Yafeng bit her lip. That's why I left at that time. But who would have thought that Lord Ming would actually invite Shangguanyu to the 2nd floor and even invite her to copy the Xian formation diagrams from the precious treasure pavilion? What did you say? Jin Yunlai was also shocked by the news. They chose Shangguanyu? Mu Yafeng nodded. They originally went to the precious treasure pavilion to buy herbs, but for some reason, Lord Ming. Also, according to Lord Ming, as long as Shangguanyu helps to copy the Xian formation, they can freely use the herbs and other items in the precious treasure pavilion. How can that be? Before Jin Yunlai could speak, she heard Shu Jing's voice behind her. She furrowed her thin brows. They couldn't get the herbs on the Herb Mountain, so they set their sights on the precious treasure pavilion? Jin Yunlai immediately frowned and asked in return. You banned them from going to the Herb Mountain? Digression, come at 6. Chapter 22:16. Shu Jing retorted. It's not that I forbade them from going to Herb Mountain, but that's the rule of Herb Mountain. They don't have a bloodline totem, and they can't take out pills of the same level to exchange. The so-called rule of Herb Mountain was set by you in the first place. Jin Yunlai's eyes flashed with displeasure. Shu Jing pursed his lips and softened his voice. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. I'm doing this for the good of the illusory God Palace. Jin Yunlai retracted his gaze and stopped looking at her. They had known each other for so many years, and he was very clear about Xu Jing's intentions. Herb Mountain stretched for thousands of miles, and countless natural treasures grew there. Its value was immeasurable. Xu Jing just wanted a piece of the pie. The authority to manage Herb Mountain had been delegated to her. As long as she didn't do anything too excessive, the higher-ups wouldn't care. The rules that she had set were strictly divided into ranks, and the winner was the king, while the loser was the bandit, was vividly reflected. Although Jin Yunlai didn't like it, he had to admit that to a certain extent, her actions did indeed have a restraining and urging effect on everyone. Want the best herbs? Then you must take out the corresponding strength to exchange for them. Don't have the qualifications? Then he would just have to increase his strength and make himself more qualified. As for those who really couldn't do it, those people shouldn't even exist in the illusory god palace. No one cared about the life and death of the weak. Although Jin Yunlai's ranking among the oracles was higher than Xu Jing's, each oracle was responsible for different things. Therefore, even if they didn't like each other, they couldn't interfere with each other's affairs. Jin Yunlai also didn't want to continue arguing with Xu Jing on this issue. She only reminded him, I know you're unhappy about this, but don't forget about Zhenbao Pavilion. You can't afford to offend them. Xu Jing's expression tightened. As for Shengguan Yu, since Zhenbao Pavilion has the intention to support her, then don't get into trouble. In the future, try not to find trouble with them. Don't bring trouble to yourself in the end. Do you understand? Jin Yunlai's voice became more serious as she stared at Xu Jing. Don't forget, no matter what decision they make, it's not up to us to say no. Just that sentence alone would cause a lot of trouble for the Zhenbao Pavilion if it was spread to them. Xu Jing finally lowered his head under the powerful, almost tangible, scrutinizing gaze. Xu Jing was embarrassed to be reprimanded in front of Mu Yafeng. She didn't stay any longer. She casually found an excuse and left in a hurry. Jin Yunlai only looked at Mu Yafeng after her figure disappeared. You heard what I said just now? His words were filled with undisguised warnings and admonitions. Mu Yafeng was shocked and hurriedly said, Yes, Yafeng will keep that in mind. As she spoke, she lowered her eyes. Her heart was in a mess. If he had known that the treasure pavilion had a powerful background, even the oracle would not have dared to offend them. From the looks of it, the oracle was indeed unwilling to go against the treasure pavilion. He was even willing to take the initiative to avoid them. I'm just curious. I don't know why the treasure pavilion chose her, Mu Yafeng said softly and looked up at Jin Yunlai. Shengguan Yu's talent is indeed outstanding, Jin Yunlai said lightly. Although she doesn't have a bloodline totem and can't ascend to heaven and become a god, the treasure pavilion thinks highly of her. It's understandable that they want to copy some Xian formations while she's still in the illusory god palace. However, this is their business. You don't have to worry too much about it. Since you can't get the mythical flame diagram, you can go back and study it. It's the same. The star path is long and countless Xian formations are gathered. It's not easy to completely comprehend it. To Mu Yafeng, it was just a matter of time. Mu Yafeng understood Jin Yunlai very well. She knew that this was his limit. There was no need to continue asking, so she tactfully agreed and turned to leave. Jin Yunlai turned and returned to the illusory god palace. As he walked, he frowned slightly. In fact, what he said to persuade Xu Jing and Mu Yafeng just now couldn't convince himself. He also felt that the treasure pavilion's decision was very strange. But he probably wouldn't have the chance to ask this answer. Chu Luiwei had to leave the illusory god palace in the end. Chu Luiwei spent 4 hours carefully reading the 2 volumes of the mythical flame diagram. To be precise, she finished reviewing. She put down the 2 volumes and rubbed her forehead. Now, she was sure that Daoist and the other 2 had been to the illusory god palace before. Or maybe they had left the illusory god palace. In short, she hadn't seen them yet, so she couldn't be sure. However, she wasn't so eager to verify this point now. Ever since she found out that Daoist had lied to her that those great Grandmaster Xian formations were just ordinary Xian formations, she had become numb to them. People's hearts are really not what they used to be. After a long time, she finally spat out a sentence weakly. After resting for a while, she put away these chaotic thoughts and started copying the Xian formations from the first volume. The first volume was relatively simpler and easier to copy. Chu Luiyue finished copying the first 10 Xian formations and stayed in the room to regulate her breathing and cultivate. She stayed for a while longer before getting up to leave. Almost at the same time she went out, Ho came out from the room next door. "Miss Shangguan, you're done copying?" Chu Luiyue wasn't surprised that he knew what she was doing. After all, this was his territory. She nodded and handed over the brand new book in her hand. "The 10 Xian formations are all here. Please review them, Lord Ming." Ho took it with a smile. With Miss Shangguan's ability, this one naturally believes in it. Originally, he wanted to say that there was no need to look, but he felt that it would be too much. In the end, he looked through it carefully. After about 15 minutes, he closed the book and praised from the bottom of his heart. "Miss Shangguan is really amazing. You actually copied all 10 Xian formations perfectly in such a short time." Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. "It's good that Lord Ming is satisfied. Then I'll take my leave first." Although she could continue, there was no hurry. She could take it slowly. Besides, the more she came here, the more she would see the second master. And even the first master. "I'll send you off," Ming Shu said hurriedly. Chu Luiyue declined with a smile and finally left alone. After she left, Ho stood at the same spot for a while before turning into another room. "Second master, she's already gone." Yen Gu patted his chest. "I know." Ming Shu looked at the book in his hand in amazement and sighed. "This Miss Shangguan is really amazing." Yen Gu clicked his tongue. "She's the apple of our first master's eye. Of course she's different." Chapter 22:17. Ming Shu was shocked and almost threw the thing in his hand away. Second master, you mean, previously he only heard from Yen Gu that this person had an extraordinary identity and must be treated well. Who knew? Yen Gu glanced at him. "Don't tell me you kept calling that person Miss Shangguan?" Is there a problem?" Zhao's voice was trembling slightly. He had already vaguely sensed something. Yen Gu looked sympathetic. It's okay. Of course, it's okay to call her that outside. Just remember to call her Madam when you're with the first master." "Zhao." "Also, if Mu Yafeng oversteps her boundaries in the future, don't be polite. Just send her away." Yen Gu crossed his legs and narrowed his eyes. "As for whether to send her out or to hell, it's up to you. What if you dirty Madam's eyes and ears?" "Zhao." He swallowed his saliva and suddenly felt that the book in his hand seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. After a while, he forced himself to speak. "Mu Yafeng is highly valued by the 7th Oracle. If I overstep my boundaries, I'm afraid it's not appropriate, right? Sending her to hell, isn't it too hasty?" Yen Gu leisurely crossed his arms. "Jin Yunlai dares to come and make trouble?" Chu Luiyue came out of the treasure pavilion and did not go back directly. Instead, she went to the Star Road again. At this time, she was standing in the middle of the Star Road. It stretched all the way down to the Divine Gate. It stretched all the way up to the palace of the illusory god. The Star Road was shining brightly. At a glance, there were a few scattered figures on the Star Road. They seemed to be comprehending the Xian formations on the Star Road. Chu Luiyue walked closer and looked down. This was the area of the Great Master's Xian formations. She glanced at the nearest Xian formations and sighed in her heart. She could not help but look back at the palace of the illusory god. If she did not come here, she would never have thought that the pavilion in the sky that appeared in the Red Moon Desert would appear in such a high position in front of her. She wondered if it was really the same as the illusion from before. "Stop looking. You won't have a chance to enter it." A sarcastic voice came from behind. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was Cheng Pei. Compared to before, his complexion was rosy, his spirit was glowing, and his aura was much stronger. It was clear that he had benefited a lot since entering the illusory god palace. Chu Luiyue smiled. "I didn't expect Senior Cheng Pei to be so concerned about me." Cheng Pei felt as if his punch had landed on cotton. He immediately let out a sigh of relief and sneered. I'm just feeling sorry for Master Yu. In the past, in the Divine Ruins world, Lord Yu's talent was outstanding, and there was no one in the limelight who could compete with him. But now that I've arrived here, I'm being neglected. I even have to worry about being chased out at all times. Master Yu, if I were you, I wouldn't have the face to continue staying here. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. If Senior Cheng Pei really thinks that way, then it's the same for you to leave on my behalf. Cheng Pei was speechless. He realized that no matter what he said, it didn't seem to have any effect on Chu Luiyue. Her mental fortitude was extremely strong. Even if the words were so unpleasant to hear, she could still laugh. He snorted. Forget it, I still have something important to do. I'm not as free as Master Yu. With that, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and flew into the distance. Ayu. Dumpling's voice suddenly sounded in her heart. Ayu. Follow him. He has the smell of Grandpa Patriarch. Chu Luiyue was shocked and immediately asked, Are you sure? Is it really Senior Yi Zhao's aura? I'm sure. It must be. Although it's very faint, it's definitely him. Dumpling urged anxiously. Chu Luiyue looked up. Cheng Pei's figure was already far away, as if he was running in a certain direction. That's the lightning pool? Chu Luiyue frowned slightly and muttered uncertainly. She knew where Cheng Pei lived. He definitely wasn't going back to his own place this time. In the distant sky, dark clouds overlapped and a large shadow shrouded the sky. It was indeed the direction of the lightning pool. She didn't have time to think. She immediately moved and followed him. Cheng Pei quickly realized that there was someone behind him. He unintentionally turned around to take a look. Instantly, his expression turned ugly and he asked warily, Why are you following me? Don't tell me you want to fight because of what happened before? Chu Luiyue looked at him without batting an eyelid and smiled faintly. The Illusion God Palace is so big. Other than the Illusion God Palace, where else can I not go? Senior Cheng Pei, aren't you being a little too nosy? Cheng Pei gritted his teeth. Chu Luiyue was clearly following him, but she refused to admit it. However, in his opinion, Chu Luiyue had always been sharp-tongued. It was meaningless to argue with her. He laughed disdainfully. Looks like you're also heading for the lightning pool. But I don't mind telling you that those without a bloodline totem are just wasting their energy. It's better for you to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, when you reach there, you won't be able to reap any benefits and you'll lose all your face. By then, it'll be too late to regret. Lightning pool? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Looks like her previous guess was right. Cheng Pei was heading for the lightning pool. Previously, Cheng Pei didn't have the aura of Senior Yi Zhao. Now that he suddenly had it, it was very likely that he accidentally got it. Looking at it now, it probably had something to do with the lightning pool. Chu Luiyue made a prompt decision and continued towards the lightning pool. Cheng Pei originally thought that Chu Luiyue would be moved after hearing those words. However, he didn't expect her to act as if she was provoked by something and quickly headed in that direction. You really won't turn back until you hit the southern wall. You won't cry until you see the coffin. When she reached the lightning pool, she would know how stupid her decision was. Cheng Pei smiled coldly and immediately followed. The lightning pool was quite a distance away from the star path. The closer they got, the more Chu Luiyue realized that there were more people heading towards the lightning pool. She frowned slightly. Didn't Jin Yunlai say that the lightning pool was a place to refine divine weapons? Why were so many people heading in that direction? One had to know that the number of weapon refiners was even fewer than the number of celestial physician. Moreover, that Cheng Pei was just an ordinary god, but he seemed to be very interested in the lightning pool. It was as if there was something amazing there. Ayu, that person just now also had the smell of Grandpa Leader. And this. Dumpling's voice fell into her ears. Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed even more. Finally, she arrived at the lightning pool. She floated in mid-air and looked ahead. She immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. It was a boundless sea of lightning, with surging waves that towered to the heavens. Countless Tianlei were gathered in it. Chapter 22:18. Silver intertwined, and there seemed to be golden light in the depths. It was brilliant. This was a real pool of lightning. The tens of thousands of heavenly lightning bolts that Tangke had accumulated back then were nothing compared to this. They couldn't even be compared to this. Above the lightning pool, dark clouds gathered, and it was gloomy. In the vast world, half of it was gloomy, while the other half was bright. It was a stark contrast. Even though she was still some distance away from the lightning pool, she could still clearly feel the boundless pressure that was surging within it. Suddenly, she fixed her gaze and saw a man trying to walk towards the lightning pool. He was bathed in lightning and was dazzling. Around him, silver snake-like tianlei flickered. Needless to say, this process was extremely torturous. However, he continued to walk deeper in, towards the place where there were more heavenly lightning and more powerful lightning bolts. At the same time, Chu Liwei also realized that the aura on his body seemed to be gradually strengthening. This is tempering the power in his body? She muttered uncertainly. Master Yu? Why are you here? A familiar voice sounded. Chu Liwei turned her head. Senior Song Qing? Although Song Qing was not familiar with her, there was no big conflict between them. Hence, Chu Liu's attitude was still very polite. Song Qing raised his hand and pointed at the lightning pool. Other than those who had already entered the lightning pool, there were also some people standing by the shore, eager to try. It seems that Master Yu really does not know. This lightning pool can not only refine the divine power in one's body, but it can also temper the divine body. That is why so many people are here. Chu Liwei was shocked. The divine body can also be tempered? In the world of God, it was naturally impossible. However, it is not a problem here. Song Qing stroked his beard. Within that lightning pool, there is an immeasurable amount of heavenly lightning accumulated. Not only can it be used to refine divine weapons, but it can also temper the divine body and increase the power of the cultivator. Not long after we arrived here, we heard about this matter. Many of us have even tried it, and it is indeed quite effective. I guess Master Yu has been busy with the star path, so you found out a little late? As he spoke, he thought of something and glanced at Chu Liwei. Oh right, I heard that Master Yu's divine body is formed from the God-destroying tribulation. You are already very strong. I don't think you need to enter the lightning pool and suffer more. Chu Liu's eyes flickered. In that case, Senior Chengpei has also gone in before? Song Qing nodded. Although he only stayed at the edge for 2 hours, the effect was outstanding. Chu Liu's lips curled up slightly. No wonder I saw Senior Chengpei's strength increase so much in such a short period of time. So this is the reason. Chengpei, who was about to rush over, heard their conversation and snorted. What? Master Yu also wants to go over and take a look? But I advise you to give up on this idea. The fourth divine messenger had already said that the Tianlei force in the lightning pool was not used to refine one's divine power or divine body. Instead, it was used to stimulate the bloodline power in one's body and help the cultivator break through the shackles and ascend to the heavens. I think you don't need to do that, right? Bloodline power. This sounded similar to how Dumpling had used the Tianlei force in the Myriad Wine Spring to break through to the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix. However, the lightning pool was stimulating the bloodline power of the human race. And she, coincidentally, did not. She lowered her eyes slightly and did not get angry at Chengpei's words. Instead, she placed her attention elsewhere. The fourth divine messenger? You've already met him? Song Qing nodded and explained. He came once a few days ago. But he only showed his face once and quickly left. Another divine messenger. Everything in the illusory God Palace seemed to be managed by the divine messengers. She did not know how many divine messengers there were, but all of them were extremely mysterious and powerful. Until now, other than the seventh divine messenger, Jin Yunlai, she had not seen any other divine messengers. Even Jin Yunlai had only seen her once at the very beginning. Chu Liwei thanked him and then moved towards the shore of the lightning pool. Chengpei's brows were tightly knitted together. Soon after, he revealed a somewhat mocking smile. You really don't want to give up? Song Qing frowned. Chengpei, we all came up together. Why do you have to go against Master Yu? I'm going against her? Chengpei seemed to have heard a joke. Elder Song, you must have seen what happened that day, right? But she did not do anything wrong. After crossing the sea and crossing the bridge, everyone has to rely on their own abilities. Not only your subordinates, but many of the other aristocratic families and clans were also forced to give up. Speaking of which, we are not close to her. If she didn't help, it would have been. Song Qing's words caused Chengpei's face to darken. Elder Song, I respectfully address you as Elder Song because of our past relationship. But it's best if you don't interfere in the matters between me and her. Actually, how could he not understand Song Qing's words? The reason why he had such a bad relationship with Chu Luiyue was mainly because he felt embarrassed that he had been rejected in public when he asked for her help. Song Qing sighed disapprovingly in his heart. Chengpei was extremely prideful. He probably would not let this matter go. Besides, I haven't done anything up until now. She was the one who wanted to go to the lightning pool. But it was good to let her try. It would be the most painful if she found out that she was still unable to break through after experiencing the pain of Tianlei. Thinking of this, Chengpei's mood improved. He quickly followed behind, waiting to watch a good show. Song Qing looked at the backs of the two people and shook his head. Chu Luiyue quickly arrived at the shore of the lightning pool. There were already a few dozen people standing here. Hearing the commotion, some of them turned around curiously. Some of them recognized her, some of them didn't. However, when they saw the letter on her waist, they quickly confirmed her identity. Chu Luiyue ignored those gazes as she went to a reef and stared at the rumbling sea of lightning in front of her. Dumpling, do you feel something? It's Grandpa Clan Leader's aura. He's in the lightning pool. Dumpling's voice was filled with anxiety and worry. But this aura is too scattered. I can't be sure of Grandpa Clan Leader's exact location. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. The lightning pool was boundless. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to find someone here. If you go in, can you find him? I don't know. Dumpling's voice was much softer. I want to go in and take a look. Can I? She was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Naturally, she was not afraid of these Tianlei. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. I'll take you there. Chapter 2219. Ever since the incident in the Red Moon Desert, Chu Luiyue was much more vigilant. Especially when it came to Dumpling. Yizhao was missing, and it was very likely that he was trapped in this lightning pool and could not get out. The entire Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix clan had been forcefully sealed. Chu Luiyue believed that Yizhao had put in a lot of effort. He had done so much because he did not want his clansmen to suffer and suffer. Tuanzi was probably one of them. The Illusion God Palace was right behind her. Chu Luiyue did not dare to guarantee that there would not be any accidents. She did not dare to let Dumpling go to the lightning pool alone. She had to go with her. Thinking of this, she did not hesitate and went straight ahead. Then, she stepped into the lightning pool. But the surrounding heavenly thunders moved as soon as they heard the commotion and quickly gathered in this direction. Everyone had been sizing her up intentionally or unintentionally. When they saw her enter the lightning pool so easily, they were all stunned. After a short silence, all sorts of discussions broke out. That's Shangguanyu? She actually went into the lightning pool just like that? Isn't she a little too bold? I heard that she's a venerable god expert, and her divine body is very strong. She might be able to withstand it for a while, but she doesn't have a bloodline totem, right? Then coming to the lightning pool is just torture. Who knows what she's thinking? She gave up on the star path and came to the lightning pool. Maybe she wants to experience the various affairs of the Illusion God Palace in the limited time she has. This way, when she leaves, she won't have any regrets? But Chu Luiyue's legs sank into the lightning pool. Several bolts of heavenly lightning gathered around her and soon enveloped most of her body. However, probably because she was still at the edge, the power contained in the Tianlei did not pose any threat to her. She took a deep breath and walked forward. In the room, Tsin half leaned on the chair. On the table in front of him, there were dozens of bottles and jars. "Is it all here?" he asked faintly. Little Hachi, with 2 dark circles under her eyes, fell softly on the small couch next to her. "They're all here." Sunyi raised his hand, picked up one of the jade bottles, and opened it to take a look. A rich medicinal fragrance wafted out from within. He raised his brows slightly. "It's better than last time." It was rare for little Hachi to hear a compliment from him. She struggled to raise her head with a sad expression. "Right? If he still hasn't improved, it would be a waste of the dark circles under his eyes that he worked so hard to get." Sunyi nodded. "Thank you, Master, for buying those medicinal herbs for you. They are all of excellent quality." Little Hachi pursed her red lips and whispered, "Don't worry. Although that's part of the reason, I'm still working very hard." Recently, her alchemy skills had simply skyrocketed. Even she herself was on the verge of tears. Sunyi looked up slightly. "Do you have anything to do with the word, hard work?" Little Hachi was speechless. "If you worked hard enough, you wouldn't still be refining these things now." Sunyi's voice was calm. It didn't sound like a criticism, but a statement of fact. But it was precisely this that was even more stimulating. Little Hachi's eyes were brimming with tears. "Big brother, you're still not satisfied with this?" Not to mention that these were all Grand Physician level pills, the more important thing was, she didn't just refine 1 or 2 pills. She refined dozens or even hundreds of pills together. If this news were to spread, who knew how many jaws would drop from shock? Big brother was actually still disdainful? Sunyi suddenly looked at Hua Shuangshuang, who was sitting beside him. "Liang He is the youngest Grand Physician in the Illusion God Palace?" Hua Shuangshuang nodded. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought so many medicinal herbs over every day. Although they didn't ask for them, they had always been there. With a casual glance, they were all valuable items. Little Hachi's mouth twitched. "Big brother, are you serious? Did he mean that he wanted her to break through to Grand Physician as soon as possible?" Sunyi put away all the pills on the table. "It's up to you whether you're willing or not." Little 8 grumbled and lay back down on the bed. Hua Shuangshuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Sunyi and Little Hachi. "Big brother said, whether you're willing or not. Not, if you can." The key was Little Hachi's reaction. Right at this moment, Sunyi suddenly sensed something and looked outside. His indifferent and narrow eyes narrowed slightly. Calculating the time, Master should be back from the treasure pavilion, right? Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. "Speaking of which, it's been a long time. Why don't I go and take a look?" "No need." Sunyi shook his head. "Master should have gone to the lightning pool. She will be back soon." Hearing him say this, Hua Shuangshuang immediately relaxed. Sunyi paused and asked again. "Little Hachi, is Shijing still in Tianling?" Little Hachi turned over and said lazily. "Should be. Didn't he always follow you, big brother?" Later, Master went to the Divine Ruins world and left Shijing to protect Shangguanyu at the Tianling dynasty. "Why are you asking this?" Sunyi tapped his finger on the table. "Let him come back. There was already someone else protecting Shangguanyu, and the Tianling dynasty was basically stable. There was no point in letting Shijing stay there." Little Hachi and Hua Shuangshuang were both shocked. "Isn't this too sudden? Big brother, are you going to summon him to the Illusion God Palace?" Sunyi could contact the 13 Yu Guard. But at this time, yes. Sunyi nodded. "The heavenly gate is still open. Let him come over directly." Little Hachi blinked. "But I don't know how strong fourth brother is now. What if he can't cross that sea and get on that bridge?" Sunyi's voice was calm. "He's not that weak." Hua Shuangshuang coughed. Little Hachi's face darkened. She felt offended. In fact, Sunyi was right. Ever since the heavenly gate opened, there were indeed people trying to come up. Although there were only a few who succeeded, everyone still went forward dauntlessly, unwilling to give up. Even if there was only a tiny bit of hope, they were willing to give it a try. When Chang Wanzhou woke up, the room was quiet. He sat up and rubbed his temples, feeling as if he had slept for a long time. But fortunately, his head didn't hurt anymore. Recently he often had headaches, and then unknowingly fell asleep. After coming to the Illusion God Palace, this feeling became more and more obvious. He looked down at Tuan Xnz on his waist. Everything was normal. After thinking for a while, he got up and walked outside. When he came to the courtyard, only Tsin Yi was there. He greeted him and walked out of the door. "Where are you going?" Tsin Yi suddenly asked. Chang Wanzhou looked back. His soft golden hair covered his delicate eyebrows, and the expression in his eyes couldn't be seen clearly. He spoke softly and smoothly. "Back to the Illusion God Palace." Chapter 22:20. There was a moment of silence in the courtyard. Tsin Yi stared at him and said in a deep voice, "What did you just say?" Chang Wanzhou's pupils constricted. Only then did he come back to his senses. A hint of confusion and nervousness appeared on his exquisite and beautiful face. "Did I say?" Of course, he knew what he had said. He had heard it clearly. However, even he didn't know why he would give such an answer. He slowly tightened his grip on the door. For a moment, his heart was in chaos. Tsin Yi paused and said, "Go back and rest for a while." Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips, nodded, and walked back. When he reached the door, he hesitated for a moment. "I want to go out for a walk." Tsin Yi looked up at him. Chang Wanzhou took a deep breath. "Just take a look around the Illusion God Palace." After a moment, Tsin Yi finally nodded. "You know very well where you can go and where you can't." Chang Wanzhou heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you." Just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, he suddenly came to his senses. Actually, he didn't know what to say after that, but it was as if the answer came out of his subconscious. He looked at Tsin Yi nervously. Seeing that Tsin Yi's expression was calm as if he didn't care, he thanked him again and turned to leave. The door was opened and closed. "Return all the things outside to Liang He," Tsin Yi said without looking up. 37 kilometers southeast, Unit 8 on Tongluan Street. Although no one would dare to take them from the door, they would still be a hindrance. Chang Wanzhou made a sound of acknowledgement before leaving. After a moment, Hua Shuangshuang walked out of the house and asked curiously, "Big brother, how do you know where Liang He lives?" During this period of time, Big brother didn't seem to have left the house, right? Tsin Yi glanced at her. "He's been coming back to the same place every day." "What's so hard to guess?" Hua Shuangshuang laughed. "Big brother, actually, I think that Liang He is not bad. Although he looks average, he's young and talented. He treats little Hachi well." For so many years, little Hachi's pursuers were as numerous as carps crossing the river, but she had never looked at any of them. She liked to be lively, but she was never reluctant to leave. She was carefree and unrestrained. Tsin Yi said calmly, "If everyone was as careless as you wouldn't even know when little Hachi was kidnapped." Hua Shuangshuang rubbed her nose. "It's just a joke. Who wants to kidnap me?" Hearing her name, little Hachi walked over seductively with a basket of carefully selected herbs. "Big brother, second brother, aren't you looking down on people too much? How could I have been abducted by someone else? On the other hand, if I'm in a good mood, I might just kidnap a few sons-in-law for you to see." Hua Shuangshuang was speechless. "That's not a son-in-law." "Oh, that's brother-in-law?" "Sigh, it's the same." Tsin Yi's heart skipped a beat as he glanced at her. "All right." Little Hachi staggered. "Big brother, I was just joking." "Are you serious?" Tsin Yi smiled meaningfully. 13th you, there's no reason for you to marry into another family. It's not a bad idea to find someone to marry into your family. Peach Blossom Cove. Yen Qing opened a letter. After quickly reading it, he moved his finger and burned the letter completely. Pass down master's orders. Everyone in Yuntian Tower is to wait for orders and is not to head to Heaven's Gate. One of the black-armored soldiers standing in front of him immediately replied, "Yes, sir." He was about to turn and leave when he suddenly paused and asked hesitantly, "Lord Yanqing, you're not going either?" Digression, come at 6. Chapter 22-21. Yanqing's handsome face was calm. "I'm not going." There was no need for that for now. After all, UMO and the others were here. Also, someone needed to watch over the peach blossom dock. Yes. Seeing Yan Qing's firm attitude, the soldier didn't ask any more questions and turned to leave. Only Yan Qing was left in the room. He thought for a while and walked out of the door. Before he could walk out of the courtyard, he bumped into Tang Ku, who had specially come. Yan Qing bowed. "Senior Tang Ku, what's the matter?" Tang Ku chuckled. "It's nothing urgent. It's just that I need some herbs for refining recently." Yan Qing paused. "Do you have a list?" Tang Ku casually handed it over. "Yes, it's all here." Yan Qing. He took it with both hands and put it away without looking at it. "I'll send it to you as soon as possible." Tang Ku rubbed her hands. Hee, this is really troublesome. In the past, it wouldn't have been easy to get these things from Yengu. But now, he was refining for Chu Luiyue. With Her Highness's permission, Yengu didn't dare to refuse. Yan Qing's expression was still cold. "It's my duty to begin with. If Senior Tang Ku doesn't have anything else, I'll take my leave." Tang Ku chuckled. Go ahead, go ahead." Recently, Yan Qing had been handling a lot of things in the peach blossom dock. He was indeed very busy. Yan Qing nodded slightly and left. Looking at his back, Tang Ku clicked her tongue and couldn't help but murmur. After so many years, his temper hasn't changed at all. Illusory God Palace, Lightning Pool. Chu Luiyue walked forward slowly and firmly. Dazzling silver light surrounded her, and countless bolts of lightning entered her body, refining the divine power in her body bit by bit. The deeper they went, the stronger the power of the mist in Tianlei became. However, Tianlei didn't pose much of a threat to her, probably because her divine body was special. Overall, it was neither painful nor itchy. After walking for a while, she still couldn't detect Yizhao's aura. She couldn't help but ask in her heart, "Dumpling, did you notice anything?" Dumpling shook her head. "Not yet. This lightning pool seems to have dispersed Grandpa Patriarch's aura. For now, I can only feel that the aura in the inner part of the lightning pool seems to be thicker." Chu Luiyue replied with a but he wasn't surprised. If it was really that easy to find Yizhao, then there would be a problem. Then let's continue to look inside. Why is she still going inside? The deeper we go, the more powerful Tianlei becomes. Even I don't dare to go there. Isn't she a little too bold? Why do I feel like the Tianlei doesn't pose any threat to her? I heard that she's already a god at such a young age and is very talented. But there's no need for this, right? I heard that Shangguan Yu's divine body came from the god annihilation tribulation. She can even withstand the god annihilation tribulation, so this shouldn't be a problem, right? However, I'm still more curious. How far can she go? As Chu Luiyue went deeper into the lightning pool, more and more people turned their attention to her. Cheng Pei, who was refining his divine body at the edge of the lightning pool, opened his eyes impatiently when he heard this. Seeing that the figure was still going toward the lightning, he clenched his fists. Anger and unwillingness surged in his heart. Everyone knew that the deepest part of the lightning pool contained the strongest power and pressure. That was because other than the silver Tianlei, there was also the golden Tianlei. If one could reach that place and undergo the best Tianlei refinement, the benefits would be immeasurable. Which cultivator in the illusory god palace didn't want to go there? Of course, he was no exception. However, everyone had their own limits. And this was his limit. If he went any further, he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to return in one piece. In comparison, Chu Luiyue easily surpassed the limits that most people could reach, and she was still moving forward. How could they not be jealous and envious? Cheng Pei felt especially uncomfortable. Forget it. No matter how talented she is, without a bloodline totem, it's useless. Thinking of this, he finally felt a little better. Ayu. She seems to be down there. After about an hour, Dumpling's excited voice sounded again. An idea popped up in Chu Luiyue's mind, and she immediately went down. Plop, her figure instantly disappeared from the lightning pool. Everyone only saw a flash of lightning. In a moment, Chu Luiyue's figure had completely disappeared from their sight. Where is she? Why did she suddenly disappear? Could it be that something has happened? The depths of the lightning pool are dangerous. Could it be that she couldn't hold on and fell down? But I didn't hear her call for help. For a moment, everyone had different opinions. Song Qing stared at the lightning pool and waited for a while. Seeing that Chu Luiyue still hadn't come up, he couldn't help but frown. The situation isn't right. Should we report to the fourth divine emissary? When everyone heard him say this, they looked at each other. Actually, it wasn't difficult to ask the fourth divine emissary, but, this matter, who was willing to do it? Cheng Pei had just come out of the lightning pool. When he heard this, he couldn't help but snort. Old song, this lightning pool has always been free to enter and leave. Life and death is one's own responsibility. Since she wants to go there, she has to pay the price for her choice. I heard that in the past, many people have died in this lightning pool. I've never heard of the fourth divine emissary taking the initiative to save anyone. Even if you report it now, I'm afraid it'll be futile. Everyone looked at each other and fell silent. Although Cheng Pei's words were unpleasant, they were the truth. No matter how one looked at it, the fourth divine emissary, and even the people present, had no obligation to help. Song Qing was conflicted for a moment and could only give up. It wasn't that he had a good relationship with Chu Luiyue, but he felt that she was still young. To be able to reach this step today, her talent was indeed extraordinary. It wasn't easy. Song Qing admired her a little. But now that they were in the illusory god palace, it was already very difficult for everyone to take care of themselves, let alone others. He could only hope that she could safely escape. Cheng Pei laughed as a cold light flashed in his eyes. If she could die here today, it would save him a lot of effort. Chu Luiyue dove down. Because the surroundings were filled with moving silver tin, it wasn't dark down there. Instead, it was bright. At a glance, she couldn't see the end. She followed Dumpling's direction and continued forward. After an unknown period of time, a golden light flashed not far in front of her. Chapter 22-22. Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks and looked in front. When she saw the scene before her, she held her breath. In front of her, behind the countless silver tunlei, a golden light flashed and shone brightly. Countless golden heavenly lightning intertwined with one another and formed a cluster. That huge ball of golden light existed silently in the depths of the lightning pool. Heavy, powerful, mysterious. This is... Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly. She almost thought that she was hallucinating. It was not that she had never seen golden Tianlei before. Back when she helped Lan Shao reconstruct his divine body, she even helped to trigger a few. However, the ones before her were uncountable. She stood there and seemed to be extremely small. Ayu, Grandpa clan leader seems to be inside. Dumpling's voice woke her up. She frowned, and her heart skipped a beat. You're saying that inside the golden Tianlei? Yes, yes. Since they were already here, Dumpling's intuition should not be wrong. However, if Yizhao was really trapped in that ball of golden Tianlei, things would be troublesome. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. She braced herself and walked forward cautiously. With every step she took, the pressure on her body became even heavier. Her shoulders seemed to be carrying a heavy mountain, and her legs seemed to be filled with lead. The silver Tianlei swam around her body. She started to feel pain all over her body. With a thought, she summoned her divine body. The beautiful soft armor covered her body, and finally isolated her from the Tianlei. Although it could not completely cancel out the power of the Tianlei, it could at least make her feel more relaxed. As the distance between her and the ball of golden lightning decreased, she gradually sensed a familiar aura. It was indeed the same as Yizhao's aura. She gritted her teeth and continued forward. At the same time, at the heavenly gate, a burly man finally walked over from the bridge. His skin was dark and he looked strong. His arms were muscular, and there was a hammer hanging from his waist. Phew, we're finally here. Mitsui wiped the sweat off his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. Ever since he received the news from his elder brother, he immediately rushed over without stopping. It had been a torturous journey. Fortunately, it seemed that he was not too late. He looked up at the divine gate in front of him and sighed. Right at this moment, a figure slowly walked over. Mitsui retracted his gaze and looked at the man. Their gazes met for a moment. Jin Yunlai walked to the gate of heaven and stood in front of Mitsui. "I am the seventh divine envoy of the illusion god palace, Jin Yunlai." Shi Jing was stunned for a moment before he cupped his fist and bowed. "So it's the seventh divine emissary. Sorry for the disrespect. You came alone?" Jin Yunlai looked behind him and asked curiously. Mitsui nodded. "That's right. Is there a problem?" Jin Yunlai shook her head. "It's nothing. However, when the gate of heaven opens, most people come in groups, and very few come alone." Mitsui chuckled and scratched his head. "Oh, this? Actually, my master and the others have already arrived. I was delayed by some matters, so I came a little late." Jin Yunlai nodded. To be able to come alone, he must have some ability. He took out the book. "Name: Mitsui." Then, the golden feather appeared in Jin Yunlai's hand. He raised his hand and the feather swept across Mitsui's forehead. It was blank. Jin Yunlai's expression changed slightly. Then, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something. "Your master is Shangguanyu?" Mitsui smiled. "That's right. It seems that the seventh divine envoy has already met my master?" Jin Yunlai paused for a moment, and her expression was cold. "I am fully in charge of the gate of heaven's audit." Mitsui noticed that her mood seemed to have become much colder in an instant, and he felt a little strange. Jin Yunlai looked at him again. "You are stronger than the previous two." Mitsui had already broken through to God. Although he did not have a bloodline totem, compared to Hua Shuangshuang and Little Hachi, it was not so difficult to accept. Then he handed over the tongue-shaped ball. "Go in." He did not explain much to Mitsui. Seeing that Jin Yunlai's attitude was a little strange, Mitsui wanted to ask more, but seeing that she did not seem to have any intention of speaking, he did not continue to ask. After receiving the tongue-shaped ball, he thanked Jin Yunlai and stepped into the gate of heaven. Chu Luiyue stopped. At this moment, she had already arrived in front of the huge golden Tianlei. The silver Tianlei was suppressed and did not approach here. There was a circle of empty space around her. At this moment, she was standing here. The powerful pressure almost made her breathless, and the blood in her body seemed to have stopped flowing. All the divine power in her body was suppressed by an unprecedented level of suppression. She knew very well how dangerous this place was. Now, as long as she raised her hand, she would be able to touch the ball of light. The bright light was almost blinding, and it was difficult to look directly at it. Chu Luiyue endured the piercing pain in her eyes and stretched out her hand. Woo-woo, a sharp buzz could be heard all of a sudden. Several bolts of golden heavenly thunder instantly changed their direction and pierced straight at him like extremely sharp blades. In an instant, Chu Luiyue was enveloped. A chill suddenly rose from the bottom of her heart. Chu Luiyue knew that even if she could trigger the golden Tianlei, the simultaneous attack of almost 100 golden Tianlei was not something she could withstand. She didn't even think about it and wanted to retreat. However, the surrounding space had been completely controlled by these Tianlei, and there was no way she could escape at all. Chi! The golden Tianlei at the front had reached between her eyebrows in an instant. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly sank. However, at this moment, a buzzing sound came from her body. In the next moment, the golden heavenly lightning came to a stop. A few strands of hair on her forehead were cut off by the aftershock and quietly fell to the ground. A strange totem flashed between her eyebrows. An invisible and vast pressure spread out from her body. Chu Luiyue's heart beat quickly, and she only felt that the area between her eyebrows was boiling hot. She slowly raised her hand and touched the area between her eyebrows. The golden Tianlei suddenly retreated a little, and then timidly stuck to the back of her hand and rubbed against it. Chapter 22-23. Chu Luiyue was taken aback. The golden Tianlei gently brushed past the back of her hand with a warm warmth. It was careful, but there was an indescribable longing. Then, the surrounding golden Tele also rushed to her and tapped on her arm and shoulder. The fierce pressure from before completely dissipated at this moment, replaced by undisguised flattery and intimacy. Chu Luiwei blinked. This situation, you. They seem to know you. Dumpling's curious voice came from the bottom of her heart. Have you been here before? Chu Luiwei's brows moved slightly. Of course not. Bang! Something bumped into her waist from behind, neither too lightly nor too heavily. She looked back and found that a few golden Tianlei had run behind her. One of them was floating back. It was obviously the one that bumped into her just now. Actually, it didn't hurt, but Chu Luiwei felt the dissatisfaction hidden in it. Dissatisfaction? Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. She said she hadn't been here before, but why did the golden Tianlei seem to be unhappy? But she was telling the truth. The illusion god palace opened the gate of heaven once every 10,000 years. How could she have been here before? Tuanzi murmured to herself, You seem to have angered them, Chu Luiwei. She raised her hands silently. Then, no matter what, we've met today, haven't we? Everyone, can I trouble you to move aside? She still wanted to see the situation inside. Swoosh, swoosh. As soon as she finished speaking, the golden lightning in front of her immediately flew to the side, making a path in the middle. Dumpling exclaimed, So obedient. You, why don't you take them as your underlings? I'm so envious. Chu Luiwei. His Dumpling was clearly a cute and adorable girl. Why was she always thinking about becoming a big sister and taking in underlings? For a moment, Chu Luiwei wondered if he had led his child astray. However, she quickly suppressed these thoughts and walked forward. Without these layers of golden Tianlei, there was only one last layer of golden Tianlei in front of them. She focused her gaze and finally saw the scene in front of her. Then, she suddenly held her breath. In front of him, several golden Tianlei formed a huge spherical cage. And at the very center of it all, a figure was bound by countless black chains. It was Yizhao. At this moment, his entire body was bound by chains. His body and the chains were stained with blood. He lowered his head slightly, and his messy hair covered most of his face. However, Chu Luiwei could still see his extremely pale face and the corners of his lips that were still bleeding. Chu Luiwei's pupils constricted. Her heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. All the air in her chest was robbed, and she could barely breathe. She had never seen Yizhao in such a tragic state. Grandpa Chief. A reddish-gold light suddenly flashed. Dumpling had already flown out and was about to charge in without thinking. Crash! The moment Dumpling appeared, the chains in the golden cage seemed to have sensed something and shook violently. Dumpling! Chu Luiwei's mind was instantly alarmed. She quickly grabbed Dumpling back and hugged her tightly. An indescribable sense of danger surged in from all directions. Chu Luiwei's heart suddenly hung in her throat. At this moment, the bound Yizhao finally moved. He slowly raised his head, and his pair of weathered eyes were suffused with a trace of scarlet. His blurry vision gradually became clear. Two familiar faces came into view. Immediately, Yizhao's expression changed abruptly. Why are they here? Hurry! Hurry up and leave! He spoke with difficulty. His voice was hoarse and harsh. These few simple words caused him to spit out another mouthful of blood. Crash! The black chains around him shook even more violently. Grandpa Chief! Dumpling's tears flowed out instantly. Large drops of hot tears fell onto the back of Chu Luiwei's hand, causing her heart to tremble. At this moment, an unfamiliar and tyrannical aura suddenly came from afar. Who dares to invade the forbidden lightning pool? A deep, cold, and oppressive voice came from afar. Chu Luiwei knew something was wrong. She immediately called Dumpling back and turned to leave. However, she hadn't run far when she felt her waist being hooked by something. She looked down and saw that it was an extremely sharp crimson sickle. If she had not summoned her divine body earlier, she would have been cut in half at the waist. Her figure moved, and like a nimble fish, she quickly broke away from him. However, the surrounding space was quickly solidifying. Trying to escape? Where can you escape to? In the blink of an eye, That person was already close to her. Chu Liyue's mind raced. At this moment, she could not escape. She might as well face the attack head-on. She simply turned around and looked at the person who had come. It was a burly young man. He held a sickle in his hand and wore blue and black armor. Countless silver tianlei extended from his body. He was very impressive. While Chu Liyue was sizing him up, that person was also sizing her up. When he saw Chu Liyue's face clearly, he frowned. Newcomer? Who gave you the courage to come here? Chu Liyue almost immediately guessed the other party's identity. You are the fourth oracle? She asked tentatively. Mu Dongyu narrowed his eyes. That's right. I am the fourth oracle, Mu Dongyu. For you. He had seen everyone in the Illusion God Palace, but this face was very unfamiliar to him. After thinking for a while, he knew that this person should be a newcomer to the Illusion God Palace. Chu Liyue knew it, but her expression was especially polite and respectful. Shengguan Yu greets the fourth oracle. Today's visit was purely a coincidence. I have no intention of offending you. Please forgive me. You are Shengguan Yu? Mu Dongyu's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Chu Liyue's brows twitched slightly. Fourth oracle, you know me? Mu Dongyu laughed. I can't say that I know you, but you have been very famous in the Illusion God Palace recently. His tone was emotionless, and Chu Liyue wasn't sure if he was praising or insulting her. But the most important thing now was to leave this place as soon as possible. I really didn't come here today for any other purpose. Swish! Before she could finish, she heard the sound of something breaking through the air. A cold light flashed in Chu Liyue's eyes, but she didn't move in the end. That sharp sickle was placed on her neck. Chu Liyue's blood seemed to have frozen at this moment. Mu Dongyu's eyes were cold as she said word by word. What did you just see? Chapter 22-24. There was dead silence all around. After a moment, Chu Liyue heard her own voice. Golden Tianlei. Mu Dongyu's scythe was even closer to her, as if it would cut her in the next moment. What else? He continued to ask. His gaze seemed to be tangible. When it landed on her body, it seemed to be sharper than his scythe. Those with weaker willpower wouldn't even dare to look him in the eye. Chu Liyue's eyes were fixed and her expression was magnanimous. Nothing else. Mu Dongyu stared at her, as if he was judging the credibility of her words. The two sides fell into a silent and almost suffocating confrontation. After an unknown period of time, Mu Dongyu finally retracted his scythe. You don't want to know the consequences of lying to me. His cold tone still carried a warning and threat. But it was obvious that he believed Chu Liyue's words for the time being. This wasn't because he believed in Chu Liyue, but because he believed in the defense of the forbidden lightning pool. Under the layers of barriers, ordinary people couldn't get close at all, let alone others. Thank you, fourth divine envoy. Chu Liyue heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, just now, she had sensed that something was wrong and immediately grabbed Dumpling to run. At that time, the surrounding golden Tianlei had also quickly returned to its original state. When Mu Dongyu arrived, she saw that Chu Liyue was still some distance away from the golden Tianlei. If not for this, Chu Liyue knew that it would be extremely difficult for her to escape. She turned her gaze slightly and quickly glanced at the golden Tianlei that had returned to its original position. The glow was rippling, shining brightly, and the pressure was clear. If it wasn't for the faint pain in her lower back, she would have thought that everything just now was just a dream. She lowered her eyes, hiding the emotions in them. I didn't know this was the forbidden lightning pool. I offended you for a moment. I hope the fourth divine envoy will forgive me. I will leave quickly. As Chu Liyue spoke, she was about to leave. Wait. Mu Dongyu suddenly spoke. Chu Liyue paused and slowly turned around. Fourth oracle, is there anything else? Mu Dongyu stared at her for a while. Your divine body came from the god-destroying tribulation? There was no way he would mistake the brilliant light that flashed across her body. Chu Liyue nodded. No wonder. Mu Dongyu murmured in relief. Even though it's a grave crime for you to trespass on the forbidden grounds, I'll let you off this time on account that you're a newcomer. In addition, being able to come here alone is sufficient to show your talent. Mu Dongyu was responsible for guarding this place all year round, but this was the first time that a god had broken into this place. Hence, he admired Chu Liwei quite a bit. Chu Liwei did not expect him to say this and was stunned for a moment. Mu Dongyu's eyes swept over the tongue on her waist, and a hint of regret appeared in her eyes. What a pity! Chu Liwei's heart skipped a beat. She had to admit that she was getting tired of hearing those two words recently. Unfortunately, she could not say anything now. However, when the golden Tianlei flew over to attack her, the space between her eyebrows was boiling hot. This situation had happened more than once, but Chu Liwei herself did not know what was going on. She could not even control when it appeared and when it disappeared. The corners of her lips curled up and she said, "Things like bloodline totems are destined. Instead of wasting time on them, I might as well use the time to do other meaningful things." You thought it through. Mu Dongyu chuckled. At first, he did not take Chu Liwei to heart, but after hearing what she said, he felt that this girl's character was very open-minded, which was quite rare. Alright, you can go back. If you want to cultivate in the future, just do it in the area outside. Don't come here again. Mu Dongyu shook her head. There won't be a next time. Yes. Chu Liwei nodded and left. After her figure disappeared into the distance, Mu Dongyu turned back to look. In the lightning pool, the golden Tianlei was silent. He stared at it for a long time. Shijing quickly found the courtyard where Cin Yi and the others lived. He had just arrived at the door when the door opened from the inside. Cin Yi was standing at the door. Shijing immediately grinned. "Big brother." Cin Yi nodded. "You came quickly." As he spoke, he walked in. Mitsui followed him and said with a smile, "After I received Big Brother's news, I immediately rushed over here without stopping to rest. Fortunately, I'm not too late." As he spoke, he looked around the courtyard. "Where's Master? Isn't he here?" "Master is in the lightning pool and hasn't returned yet." Cin said. "Lightning pool?" Shijing looked in a certain direction. "Over there?" Although it was quite a distance away, the vigorous power of the Tianlei was still very easy to distinguish. Cin nodded. "You can go take a look if you have time. It's a good place." "Ah? Okay." Shijing didn't think too much about it. In any case, Big Brother was right. At this moment, Hua Shuangshuang also walked out of the room. "Fourth brother, you're here? You've already become a venerable god." Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. "Haven't you always been in Tianling? How did you break through so quickly?" He was still a venerable god. Shijing laughed. "Second brother, it's not that I'm too fast, it's that you're too slow. Although Tianling is outside the Divine Ruins world, there are still a few places that are very suitable for cultivation. I returned to Dahuang Swamp a few times and stayed there for a while. After that, I went to the Divine Ruins world and broke through." "Dahuang Swamp?" "Yes, I went to Mirror Lake. I wanted to go to Red Moon Desert to take a look, but that place was already sealed. Ordinary people couldn't enter at all, so I didn't go." Hua Shuangshuang nodded. She knew that Shijing had been staying in the Mystic Forest with Cin Yi a few years ago. But later, the Mystic Forest was destroyed, and Master brought Dumpling back, so they never went there again. In the 13 Yu Guard, there were probably not many people who knew Dahuang Swamp better than the two of them. It was normal that he would go back. Shijing looked at Cin Yi. "Big brother, why did you ask me to come here in such a hurry?" Chang Wanzhou came to a courtyard. This was Liang He's residence. He knocked on the door. Knock knock. Liang He quickly walked out of the room. "Who is it?" He came to the courtyard and saw Chang Wanzhou standing outside. He hesitated. These are your things? I'm returning them." Chang Wanzhou took out all the herbs and placed them at the door. Then he was about to leave. Liang He was dumbfounded and hurriedly shouted, "Wait!" Chang Wanzhou paused and turned around. There was no expression on his exquisite and cold face. "Is there anything else?" Liang He was stared at by those clear and cold eyes. For a moment he didn't know what to say. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Psst, little Hachi's idea?" Chang Wanzhou narrowed his eyes. "She's master's woman. You're not worthy of her." Chapter 22-25. His tone was very calm. But it was also because of this that it was so blunt, harsh, and even embarrassing. Liang He's expression changed slightly. He was the youngest supreme doctor in the illusion god palace, and his future was limitless. Even the 8th divine emissary, Shu Jing, had to be polite to him. Although he wasn't very noble, he was definitely in the upper middle class. But now, he was being said to be climbing the social ladder? He couldn't accept this no matter what. "Young master, please be more polite with your words. I'm in love with little Hachi, and I'm sincerely pursuing her. But no matter how bad it is, between us, you can't say that I'm climbing the social ladder, right?" Liang He's expression was somewhat cold. Of course, he knew who this young man was talking about. In the past few days, Shengguan Yu's name had spread far and wide. Although she didn't complete the star path, she easily broke Mu Yafeng's record. Just this point alone was enough for everyone in the illusion god palace to remember her. Under normal circumstances, with her extraordinary talent and potential, it was enough to make many people scramble to befriend her. But she didn't have a bloodline totem. Just this point alone was enough to erase everything about her. And it wasn't just her. The people who came with her were all like this. Even little Hachi wasn't an exception. It was only because he liked little 8 that he had always been polite to them. But he didn't expect that in the end, the other party would say such words. Chang Wanzhou's face was still expressionless, as if he didn't hear Liang He's words at all. "Are you done?" Liang He was startled. Chang Wanzhou turned and left. "You?" Liang He suddenly felt his chest tighten. The other party's nonchalant attitude really made him very uncomfortable in his heart. He looked at the herbs piled up at the door, and his mood became even more gloomy. After thinking for a while, he finally couldn't help but step forward and say in a low voice, "There are some words that you might not like to hear, so I haven't said them. But now I have to say them out loud. None of you have a bloodline totem. You won't even last a month in the illusory god palace. Even if he could rely on some means to stay for a while longer, the final result would be the same. However, if little Hachi is willing to be with me, at the very least, I can keep her here." Chang Wanzhou stopped in his tracks. She hasn't fallen to such a state yet. After he finished speaking, he paid no further attention to Liang He and directly left. Liang He furrowed his brows, and something seemed to be surging in his heart. Unreasonable. Could it be that these people are still living in a dream? Did he really think that he could stay here with his little talent and strength? Plop. Chu Luiwei rushed out from the lightning pool. She glanced back. She was already quite a distance away from that place, and she could barely see that patch of gold. However, the scene just now was still vivid in his mind. Although it was risky, they finally confirmed that Yi Zhao was there. "I'll just come back when I have the chance." She suppressed the thoughts in her heart and turned to walk towards the shore. Chu Liuyue's reappearance caused an uproar among the people on the shore. "That's Shengguan Yu? It's really her. She's still alive?" Cheng Pei, who was waiting for news of Chu Liuyue's death, noticed the commotion and immediately looked over. When he saw that familiar face, his heart sank. She's been down there for so long, but she's still alive? Why is this Shengguan Yu so tough? Digression. Wow, I've seen so many deduced endings, and I have to admit that some of them are really interesting. Come back at 6. Chapter 22-26. However, Song Qing and the others were more concerned about something else. That's not right. She was almost at the deepest part of the lightning pool. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have survived. Why did she come out unscathed? To them, that was a place that they couldn't get close to. However, not only did Chu Luiwei go there easily, but she even stayed there for a long time. She only came back leisurely when everyone thought that she had died in the lightning pool. They were both gods, but wasn't the gap between them a little too great? Chu Luiyue stared at everyone's shocked gazes as she went ashore. Everyone's gaze was focused on her face and body. Her face was beautiful and her color was just right. Her figure was slender, and she was exquisite. Not only was there no trace of blood on her body, but there wasn't even a wrinkle on her clothes. Those who didn't know would think that she had just gone out to have fun. The way everyone looked at her became more and more strange. The Shangguanyu? Was there really something wrong with her? Why is everyone looking at me? Chu Luiyue stood still and looked up with a smile. Her tone was relaxed, and her lips were full of smiles. Everyone fell silent. After a moment, the first to speak was Cheng Pei. Shangguanyu, you just went to the deepest part of the lightning pool? He frowned and asked in disbelief. Chu Luiyue nodded casually. Yes, I went there for a walk, but there didn't seem to be anything interesting, so I came back. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with you asking yourself? Everyone was in a mess. They were still at the edge of the lightning pool. It was very difficult for them to take another step in. She went straight to the deepest part of the lightning pool, and in the end she said that it was boring? Have you ever considered their feelings? Cheng Pei was so angry that he couldn't speak. His face was red and white. He also wanted to say a few words to refute Chu Luiyue, but everyone saw clearly that Chu Luiyue went there and came back unscathed. What else could they say? Previously, he had imagined that she would die inside, but now, not only did she not die, she seemed to have devoured a lot of Tianlei's power. The aura on her body was clearly much stronger than before. Cheng Pei was upset and his chest felt suffocated. With great difficulty, he managed to squeeze out a sentence. Heh, looks like I've really underestimated you. It's not too late to realize this. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile. Then he revealed a look of surprise. That's right, didn't Senior Cheng Pei say that he wanted to enter the lightning pool to temper his divine body? Why didn't you go? Poochie. Someone at the side suddenly laughed out loud. Cheng Pei's expression turned even uglier. Chu Luiyue blinked, then suddenly understood. Oh, so Senior Cheng Pei has already been there and came out again? How long has it been? Based on this speed, how long will it take for you to completely temper your divine body? Cheng Pei was furious. He flung his sleeves. You don't have to worry about this. After all, you don't even know how long you can stay here. So what if he's slow? It's better than her coming here without any hope. Chu Luiyue nodded sincerely. Then, I wish you all the best. I also hope that before I leave this place, I can see that you have made some obvious progress. Oh right, there's one more thing. Chu Luiyue took a step forward and suddenly turned back. I forgot to remind everyone that the fourth divine envoy is guarding the center of the lightning pool. Don't go near it. Everyone was shocked. Song Qing asked, You saw the fourth divine envoy there? Chu Luiyue nodded. The fourth divine envoy was magnanimous and let me go this time. However, it's hard to say if someone else dares to barge in again. That's all I have to say. Everyone, please be careful. Many people looked at each other in silence. What was the use of knowing this? They wouldn't be able to reach that place. If she hadn't said that she was also warned by the fourth divine envoy, everyone would have thought that she was showing off. Chu Luiyue didn't care about how they were going to leave. He straightened his collar and left. After leaving the lightning pool, the smile on Chu Luiyue's face gradually disappeared. A hint of graveness colored the corners of his eyes. Although he already knew Yizhao's whereabouts, it was still very troublesome to save him. Not to mention the fourth divine envoy guarding outside, just the countless golden Tianlei and black chains formed a cage that was difficult to break free from. He didn't need to think to know that once there was any movement, it would definitely be noticed. And this was the Illusion God Palace. She and Dumpling were restricted everywhere. It would be even harder to bring them out. Dumpling? Chu Luiyue called Dumpling a few times in his heart. After a while, Dumpling's sobbing voice could be heard. Are we unable to save Grandpa Patriarch? She had always been by Chu Luiyue's side. She had seen all the dangers and difficulties they had encountered along the way. Even if Chu Luiyue didn't say it, she knew how difficult it would be. Chu Luiyue sighed and softened his voice. Dumpling, don't worry. Although they have locked up Senior Yi Zhao, they don't seem to have any intention of taking his life. We still have time and a chance. Yi Zhao's situation was very bad. He was already on the verge of death. But it was also because of this that Chu Luiwei could conclude that the other party didn't really want to take Yi Zhao's life. At least, they didn't want to. Otherwise, Yi Zhao wouldn't have been able to live until now. After hearing Chu Luiwei's words, Dumpling was relieved and asked softly. Then what should we do? That divine envoy looked so fierce. Other than the fourth divine envoy, where are the other divine envoys? And where is the person who captured Yi Zhao? Chu Luiwei paused for a moment and said softly but firmly. There must be a way. She quickly returned to her residence. As soon as she arrived at the door, she felt a rather familiar aura inside. She was slightly stunned. The next moment, she saw Mitsui's figure suddenly appear. Master, you're back. Chu Luiwei's eyes lit up. Mitsui, why are you here? Mitsui chuckled. I heard from Big Brother that you're all here. I thought that the matter at Tianling was almost settled, so I came over. Chu Luiwei walked over and looked at him carefully. You've already broken through to God Venerable? This cultivation speed was really fast. Mitsui simply repeated the reason why he and Hua Shuangshuang had met before. Only then did Chu Luiwei feel relieved. Mitsui's talent was indeed extremely outstanding, and his temperament was extremely stable on the path of cultivation. It wasn't too surprising that he could reach where he was today. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Chu Luiwei looked back curiously. Who would be here at this time? I'll open the door. As Shijing spoke, he strode over with large strides. Creak. A familiar face appeared in front of him. Chu Luiwei was stunned. Miss Mu. Chapter 22-27. It was Mu Yafeng standing outside the door. Shijing turned around and asked, Master, do you know her? Chu Luiwei nodded. Miss Mu, what's the matter? Mu Yafeng looked past Shijing and at Chu Luiwei. I do have something to discuss with Miss Shangguan. Chu Luiwei smiled. Ms. Mu, if there's anything, just say it. Mu Yafeng, however, looked a little troubled. I wonder if Miss Shangguan can talk to me in private? Chu Luiwei understood. It seemed that it was not an ordinary matter. Well, Miss Mu couldn't come here in person for an ordinary matter. Miss Mu, please come in. Mu Yafeng followed Chu Luiwei into her room. After both sides sat down, Chu Luiwei went straight to the point. There's no one else here now. Miss Mu, you can speak. Mu Yafeng crossed her hands and seemed to hesitate. After a moment, she finally spoke. Actually, I'm here this time to make a deal with Miss Shangguan. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows slightly. I have a way to let Miss Shangguan and the others stay in the illusory God Palace. If you need anything in the future, I'll try my best to find it for you. Mu Yafeng said word by word. She thought that Chu Luiwei would be surprised and excited to hear this. However, contrary to her expectations, the woman opposite her had a faint smile on her face, and her expression didn't change at all. After she finished speaking, Chu Luiwei asked unhurriedly, What do you want, Miss Mu? Mu Yafeng's conditions were undoubtedly very generous. For people without bloodline totems, this was undoubtedly the greatest temptation. Mu Yafeng dared to offer such conditions, which could only mean that she wanted a lot. Mu Yafeng bit her lip. For a moment, she felt that all her thoughts had been seen through by Chu Luiwei. This feeling made her very uncomfortable. It shouldn't be like this. Could it be that she didn't care at all if she could stay in the illusory God Palace? Even if she didn't care, what about her subordinates? Did they not care at all? Chu Luiwei's nonchalant attitude instantly gave Mu Yafeng the illusion that the conditions he offered couldn't move the other party at all. This woman's thoughts were extremely deep. With that thought in mind, Mu Yafeng took a deep breath and looked up at Chu Luiwei. Miss Shangguan is also a smart person, so I'll be frank, I want the mythical flame diagram. Now, Miss Shangguan has obtained the opportunity to copy the Xian formation diagrams of the precious treasure pavilion. The mythical flame diagram might be among them. If Miss Shangguan is willing to help, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Miss Mu. Chu Luiwei interrupted her. I can't help you with this. Mu Yafeng's face stiffened. Actually, she had no choice but to come here. The last part of the Xian formations on the star path were extremely complicated and difficult to comprehend. She went back and studied it for a long time, but she still didn't have a clue. A Xian formation was already so difficult for her. She really didn't know how long and how much effort it would take for the rest to comprehend. But she really didn't want to wait hopelessly anymore. More importantly, she realized that with her current strength, it was impossible to comprehend all of them in a short period of time. Even as she wasn't sure if she could really comprehend all the Xian formations. Now, many people in the illusory God Palace were secretly discussing when she would be able to complete the star path. If they knew that she didn't have the confidence and ability, then, at that time, there would be countless people waiting to see her make a fool out of herself. So, after realizing this, she made up her mind to get the mythical flame diagram. With the annotations and pointers on it, these problems would definitely be solved. The precious treasure pavilion wouldn't be able to get through. They had always guarded these places very strictly. Moreover, for some reason, the second master, Jue, and the others were much colder to her than before. After thinking about it, she could only come to Chu Luiwei, hoping to get the mythical flame diagram from her. But she didn't expect that the moment she opened her mouth, she would be rejected before she could even finish speaking. Miss Shangguan, although I haven't been in the illusory God Palace for long, I still know some rules. Chu Luiwei's red lips curled up, but her black jade-like eyes were cold. If I give you the mythical flame diagram, wouldn't that be equivalent to betraying the precious treasure pavilion? Although she wasn't a member of the precious treasure pavilion, from a certain point of view, they were in a cooperative relationship. Zhu trusted her and directly gave it to her. If she turned around and made a deal with Mu Yafeng, Miss Shangguan, I know this is a bit difficult for you. But I really need it. How about this? You don't have to give me the whole thing, I only want a part of it. Not even half of it. Chu Luiwei stood up. If Miss Mu has no other business with me today, I won't keep you. Please. Mu Yafeng's face turned green. Was she asking her to leave? Her hands clenched tightly in her sleeves, and she suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and asked, Miss Shangguan, if you don't say anything and I don't say anything, no one will know. Anyway, you're going to copy the Xian formation, so what if you copy a few more for me? Moreover, using these to exchange for the right to stay in the illusory God Palace forever is definitely not a loss for you, right? Chu Luiwei looked at the letter at her waist and sighed. To be honest, we're not even in a hurry about this, so I really don't know why each of you is so concerned about it. If you can stay, stay. If you can't, leave. Isn't this simple? Everyone is relying on their own abilities, so why go through so much trouble? Her main purpose of coming here was to find Dabao and the others and save them. As for the rest, she really didn't take it to heart. What's more, cheating is like being pregnant. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. How can you say that it's a little pregnant? Chu Luiwei's words made Mu Yafeng's face turn completely cold. So, you really don't want to help? It's not that I don't want to, it's that I can't. Chu Luiwei put her hands on the table, leaned forward, and looked at Mu Yafeng condescendingly. Miss Mu, you don't really think that if you rely on other methods to comprehend the remaining Xian formations, no one will be able to see it, right? Mu Yafeng's lips trembled slightly. What do you mean by that? Chu Luiwei's lips curved slightly. Nothing. I'm just reminding you that the seventh divine envoy is not a fool. Jin Yunlai must be very clear about Mu Yafeng's talent. If she really soared to the sky, how could he not guess what was going on? Mu Yafeng gritted her teeth. Are you saying that my talent is low? Chu Luiwei said honestly, it's not high anyway. Chapter 22-28. A fire suddenly rose from the bottom of Mu Yafeng's heart. She had been in the illusory God Palace for many years and had always been the envy and admiration of everyone. When had anyone ever said that her aptitude was low? However, the person who said this was Chu Luiyue. No matter how much she didn't want to admit it, she knew that compared to her, she was slightly inferior. Therefore, even if she was filled with anger and unwillingness after hearing this, she had no right to refute. Mu Yafeng was so angry that she laughed. Yes. Compared to Miss Shangguan, that bit of talent of mine is indeed not worth mentioning. But, so what? Without a bloodline totem, you can't stay in the illusory god palace. Ascending to the heavens and becoming a god is even more unattainable. Miss Mu, you don't have to worry about this. Chu Luiyue's red lips curved, giving a gentle and sincere smile. At least for this period of time, I will still help Treasure Pavilion copy the Xian formations. As for the rest, I'll just take it one day at a time. Some things can't be forced, so why make things difficult for yourself? It's better to accept it. Mu Yafeng choked. On the other hand, Miss Mu, if you have the time and energy to be opportunistic, why don't you go back and study Xian formations more? Perhaps it will be more useful. Of course, if you really can't understand it, it only proves that the illusory god palace is also out of your reach. Chu Luiyue straightened up and raised her hand to send her off. Miss Mu, please. Mu Yafeng stood up with a bang. Her eyes seemed to be burning with flames. Shangguan Yu, you will regret today's choice. Chu Luiyue didn't seem to hear her threat and warning, smiling faintly. I just walked around the thunder pool and am a little tired, so I won't see you out. Mu Yafeng was speechless. She gritted her teeth and turned to leave. Shi Jing was standing in the courtyard and was a little confused when he saw Mu Yafeng leave with an ashen face. What's wrong with this Miss Mu? Wasn't she very polite when she came just now? Why did she change her attitude in the blink of an eye? Chu Luiyue said, in the future, there's no need to open the door when she comes. Shi Jing hurriedly responded, yes. Chu Luiyue's brows raised. However, it was also very likely that he would not come again. She looked around. Where is Xiaozhou? She hadn't seen anyone since she came back. Based on his character, he didn't seem like someone who would go out casually. As soon as he finished speaking, a familiar figure appeared outside the door. It was Chang Wanzhou. He lowered his head slightly and seemed to be distracted. Little boat? Chu Luiyue raised his voice. Chang Wanzhou came back to his senses and looked up. Chu Luiyue saw that he was somewhat absent-minded and felt a little strange. Where have you been? Chang Wanzhou paused. I felt a little bored, so I went out for a walk. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Ever since they came here, they really didn't go out much. You always said that you had a headache. Is it better now? Chang Wanzhou nodded. Much better. Chu Luiyue smiled. That's good. We don't know how long we will stay here. You don't have to think too much. Just do your own things. Chang Wanzhou nodded and entered the house again. He took a cloth and began to clean the place. Chu Luiyue wanted to say that this place was quite clean and that there was no need to clean it. However, she felt that Chang Wanzhou seemed to be a little uneasy, so she didn't say that. He had his own way of handling things. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and shouted to the other room, Sun Yi, come here for a moment. Sun Yi quickly came over. Master, why did you call me here? Chu Luiyue raised her hand and set up a barrier to block out the sound to ensure that their conversation would not be heard by the people outside. Then she came in front of Sun Yi and said, Sun Yi, I want to enter the lightning pool to save someone. Sun Yi's long and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly. After a moment, he asked, previously, Master went there for this matter? Chu Luiyue wasn't surprised that he guessed it. She nodded slightly. Senior Yi Zhao is trapped in the depths of the lightning pool and is strictly guarded by the fourth divine envoy. It will be extremely difficult to save him. Do you have any ideas? Sun Yi was silent for a long while. With clan leader Yi Zhao's strength, the person who can bring him here and imprison him definitely can't be underestimated. Moreover, the relevant defenses must be extremely complicated. It won't be easy to save him silently and without attracting anyone's attention. Chu Luiyue sighed. I know. It's just that. However, she really couldn't just stand by and watch it happen. Yi Zhao had a cold and arrogant personality. Back then, he even threatened her to break the contract with Dumpling. However, To be fair, he was indeed very good to Dumpling. And later, he even began to love her because of her. For the sake of Tuanzi, he helped her a lot. She had always remembered this kindness in her heart. Now that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was in trouble, Yizhao must have paid a huge price to protect the many clansmen of the Phoenix God Mountain. As for himself, he had been reduced to such a state. No matter how she looked at it, she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. So you don't have any ideas? Sun Yi shook his head. There is a way, but it's a little troublesome. Chu Liyue's eyes lit up. What is it? Let me hear it first. As long as there was a way, she had to try it first before knowing whether it would work or not. Sun Yi's brows twitched. There is a way to break any mechanism. It's just that the degree of difficulty is different. The crux of this matter is that once clan leader Yizhao escapes, he will definitely be noticed. Chu Liyue frowned. This was what gave her the biggest headache. That's right. Previously, I only got a little closer and glanced at Senior Yizhao, and it attracted the fourth divine envoy. Sun Yi said, actually, it's not difficult to solve this problem. We just need to find a substitute and steal the day in the chaos. A white light suddenly flashed across Chu Liyue's mind. You mean, as long as the fake is real enough, this plan will work. Chu Liyue instantly understood Sun Yi's meaning. First, they would muddy the waters, then take advantage of the chaos to rescue people and replace them with a fake. As long as they could fool those people, nothing would be discovered. This was indeed a method, but it was extremely difficult to implement. Where can I find a substitute for Senior Yizhao? He is the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Chu Liyue fell into deep thought, her brows tightly knitted. The aura of every member of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was unique and irreplaceable. Not to mention the clan leader Yizhao. How could anyone in this world be able to impersonate him? Actually, the problem of appearance is very easy to solve. The key is aura. Sun Yi. The main reason why clan leader Yizhao is special is that he is the only person in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan who has opened the 7th meridian. If we can separate a portion of his qi and blood from his body, we can pass off the fake as the real one. Chu Liyue rubbed her temples and sighed. I'm afraid that won't work. He's locked up there and can't get close at all, let alone other things. Sun Yi looked at her quietly. There's a second method. Find another Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix who has opened the 7th meridian. Chapter 22-29. The second one? But the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan currently only has Senior Yizhao. Chu Liyue's voice trailed off. She suddenly thought of a very promising candidate. You're talking about Dumpling? Sun Yi nodded. As the young matriarch of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, she's the most likely person to open her 7th meridian. No one was more suitable than Dumpling. Are you? There was a flash of light before her eyes. Dumpling had already run out and hugged Chu Liyue's neck. Does that mean that as long as I can open my 7th meridian, I can save Grandpa clan leader? Chu Liyue hugged her soft body in her arms and lightly patted her round hair bun. In general, it's not impossible, but then it's decided. Dumpling immediately continued, her grape-like eyes sparkling as she clenched her small fists. Then I must open my meridian as soon as possible. Chu Liyue flicked her finger on her forehead. How can you rush something like this? Besides, you just opened your 6th meridian recently. Now that your body has recovered a little, you can't advance rashly. She still had lingering fears from what happened last time. No matter what, she couldn't let Dumpling take the risk again. Dumpling rubbed her forehead, feeling wronged. But what about Grandpa clan leader? Chu Liyue pursed her lips. This was a dilemma. Apart from this method, she couldn't think of any other way. But she didn't dare to risk Dumpling. Wait first, she said. I just went to the lightning pool forbidden area today. The 4th divine emissary will definitely keep a close watch. Perhaps it's better to go after a while. Also, let's see if there are any other methods during this period. If there really aren't any, we should at least increase our strength. That way, their chances of success would be higher. She looked at Sunyi. You and I are both venerable gods. Xianxia and Little Hachi's talents were not at the level of martial artists, so let's not talk about them for now. On the other hand, Xiao Zhou's aura seems to be much stronger than before. If I cultivate more, I might even be able to reach her eminence. There was still a considerable amount of frost energy sealed in his body. If he could fully unleash these powers, Sunyi looked up. Master, are you saying that we should wait until he becomes a god before we act? Chu Liwei tapped his fingers on the table. That's naturally for the best. Tomorrow, I'll go to the treasure pavilion to look for some medicinal herbs and see if I can use some pills to help him recuperate. You can leave first. Don't tell Little Hachi and the others about this for now. Yes. Sunyi respectfully left and closed the door. Tuanzi leaned on her shoulder and whispered, Don't worry. I will definitely open my 7th meridian. Chu Liwei kissed her cheek. After comforting Dumpling, Chu Liwei thought for a moment and went to Xiao Ran's residence. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Xiao Ran sitting on the roof with a toothpick in his mouth. Little girl, you're here? Hearing the commotion, Xiao Ran looked down. Chu Liwei smiled. I planned to visit before, but I was busy with those messy things and couldn't get away, so I came today. Senior Xiao Ran won't be angry, right? Xiao Ran was instantly amused. Ha! Little girl, you're really interesting. Walking the star path and entering the lightning pool. If it were anyone else, they would be so proud that they would want to show off to the world. But when it came to you, it became a mess. If some people heard this, wouldn't they be angered half to death? Chu Liwei blinked. You already know? I'm afraid the entire Illusion God Palace knows now, right? As Xiao Ran spoke, he looked at her curiously. Did you really go to the deepest part of the lightning pool? Chu Liu's lips curled into a mischievous smile. You can say that. But because of that, I almost offended the 4th Divine Envoy, so it's not a good thing. Why not? Xiao Ran jumped down and said leisurely. From now on, you'll be famous in the 4th Divine Envoy's place. With that person's personality, he'll probably like you. After all, there were only a few people who could go to the deepest part of the lightning pool. Chu Liwei frowned slightly. It seemed that no one knew that the deepest part of the lightning pool was a forbidden area. On one hand, it was because the 4th Divine Envoy was guarding it. On the other hand, it was likely that no one could easily get close, so it was better not to say anything. This would reduce everyone's curiosity and save them a lot of trouble. It was purely an accident that she went there. I don't have a bloodline totem, so the 4th Divine Envoy won't treat me differently. Chu Liwei laughed self-deprecatingly. Xiao Ran's smile froze. That's true, I almost forgot about it. It's indeed a pity. But no matter what, your days in the Illusory God Palace will be much better. Chu Liwei didn't care about this and asked, I saw that you were looking at something on the roof just now? Xiao Ran didn't avoid it and replied frankly, Yes, I was looking at the star path. Why are you looking at the star path? Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment. I'm looking at what's on the star path. Chu Liwei then remembered that he was also a Xian master. You're comprehending the Xian formations on the star path? Xiao Ran had a headache. You don't know, but the last part of the star path all starts with the word Tian, and they're all extremely difficult. He walked to the side and sat on a stone bench in the courtyard. This kind of thing depends on talent. If you don't have that comprehension ability, it's useless even if you study it for 100 years, 200 years, or even longer. Didn't Mu Yafeng go back already? Everyone thought that she was about to succeed, but in fact, it's still early. She's not that far away. I've been studying the celestial demon formation for more than 100 years, and I'm going bald. Unfortunately, until now, I still don't have any clues. Sigh, I don't know if there will be a day when I can comprehend it. Celestial demon formation? An extremely complicated Xian formation diagram quickly appeared in Chu Liu's mind. She nodded. That's quite difficult. Xiao Ran paused. What did you say? Chu Liu's forehead twitched. She didn't pay attention for a moment and actually blurted it out. "You've seen the celestial demon formation?" Xiao Ran stood up straight and stared at her. The air seemed to have frozen at this moment. Chu Luiwei met his gaze and blinked. "What I mean is, since it's a Xian formation engraved on the last part of the star path, it must be quite difficult. Besides, didn't you say before that it's very difficult to comprehend anything that starts with the word Tian?" Xiao Ran didn't say anything and narrowed his eyes slightly. After a while, he said firmly, "You've seen the celestial demon formation." It wasn't a question, but a statement of certainty. Digression: my Kavinka is going to go bald too, sob sob sob. 6 o'clock. Today is the last day of March. I'm waving my little hand to beg for monthly votes. There will be a small burst of updates in April, and it will be the last update before the end. Chapter 2230. Miss Shangguan? A voice suddenly interrupted the confrontation between the two of them. Chu Liwei turned around and heaved a sigh of relief when she saw who it was. "Lord Ming, why are you here?" Ming Shu was standing at the door and looking at the two of them in the courtyard. When he heard Chu Liu's question, he hurriedly smiled and said, "I went to your place just now, but you weren't there. I heard that you were here, so I rushed over." Xiao Ran looked at Ming and then at Chu Liwei with a meaningful expression. Ming was a member of Zhenbao Pavilion and was usually polite to others. However, his attitude towards Chu Liwei seemed to be a little different. There was also a hint of caution and sincerity in his politeness. Why did he treat Chu Liwei so seriously? "Why are you looking for me?" Chu Liwei was also a little confused. "Oh, it's like this. Didn't I hear that you went to the lightning pool previously and stayed in the depths of the lightning pool for a long time? Zhenbao Pavilion wanted to send you a gift to congratulate you." As he spoke, Ming took out a few jade boxes of different sizes. "These are all for you. Take a look and see if you like them." Chu Liwei. It wasn't strange that the people of Zhenbao Pavilion knew about this. But why did they send gifts? Chu Liwei hesitated for a moment and said, "This? You're too polite. Actually, it was an accident that I went to the lightning pool. You should take these things back." The corners of Ming Shu's eyes twitched. It wasn't easy for him to find a reason to send these things over. How could he bring them back? He coughed. "Miss Shangguan, do you not like these? Then you can follow me to Zhenbao Pavilion and choose them yourself." Chu Liwei, seeing that Ming Shu didn't seem to be joking and looked sincere and eager, Chu Liu's fingers curled up and could only accept the things. "Thank you." Ming Shu heaved a long sigh of relief. Now that he had completed the mission, he felt much better, and even the smile on his face became much more relaxed. "It's just a small gift. It's fine as long as you like it. There's no need to thank me. What's more, no one in the Illusion God Palace has been able to do this for so many years, but you did it the moment you arrived. You are worthy of this gift." These were Ming Shu's heartfelt words. When he heard that the first time Chu Liwei went to the lightning pool, he was shocked for a long time. He knew that this person was powerful, but he didn't expect him to be this powerful. Chu Liwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She opened the box and was slightly surprised. These were all top-notch medicinal herbs of great value. Who would have thought that Ming Shu would directly send it over? "Lord Ming, it's rare for you to leave the treasure pavilion." Xiao Ran walked over and looked at Chu Liwei with a faint smile. "Little girl, I couldn't tell that you have such a good relationship with Lord Ming." The gift itself was somewhat inexplicable. Moreover, it was Ming Shu who came in person. In the entire illusory God Palace, there weren't many who received such treatment. Ming's eyelids twitched fiercely. "Little girl? This person's guts weren't ordinary." He laughed. "Miss Shangguan is now a member of our treasure pavilion. Naturally, she's different from others." Xiao Ran was stunned. "What do you mean? How long had this little girl been in the Illusion God Palace? How did she have a relationship with the treasure pavilion?" "Xiao Ran, you don't know. Our treasure pavilion recently invited Miss Shangguan to help copy Xian formations." Ming Shu said with a smile. "What?" Xiao Ran was truly shocked. His eyes widened as he looked at Chu Liwei in disbelief. You, It wasn't that he didn't know how strict the treasure pavilion's requirements were. Back then he had thought about this, but unfortunately, he was still a little short and didn't succeed. How could he not be shocked when he heard Ming's words? Not many people knew about this. On one hand, this matter was just confirmed. On the other hand, the treasure pavilion and Chu Luiwei didn't announce this matter to the public. Other than bumping into Mu Yafeng that day and letting her know, most people in the Illusion God Palace didn't know anything about this. So even someone as well informed as Xiao Ran didn't know anything about this. Chu Luiwei's black jade-like eyes seemed to sparkle with scattered starlight. She laughed lightly. This is the answer to the question you asked just now. Xiao Ran sucked in a breath of cold air. So that's it. He knew that with Chu Luiwei's current Great Mystic King Master rank, there was no reason for her to have seen the Sky Demon Xian formation. But she seemed to be very familiar with it. It was really strange. And now, there was finally an answer to this question. I really didn't expect you to do such a big thing silently. After the initial shock, Xiao Ran chose to accept it very quickly. He was very clear about how outstanding Chu Luiwei's talent was. Although she was only a Great Mystic King Master now, the fact that the Treasure Pavilion was willing to make such a choice was enough to see how highly they thought of her. Even if she didn't have a bloodline totem. Xiao Ran looked at Chu Luiwei with emotion, his expression a little complicated. So, you've read the mythical flame diagram? Chu Luiwei smiled faintly and nodded. I just read a little. The Sky Demon Xian formation should be in the second volume, right? Xiao Ran asked. Chu Luiwei paused. I roughly read it before and didn't have time to study it carefully. Xiao Ran's eyes revealed some envy. After so many years, the Treasure Pavilion only chose you. If this news spread, her doorstep would probably be trampled by people. More importantly, this meant that she would have the support of the Treasure Pavilion behind her in the future. Those people who looked down on her and even mocked her before would have to think twice in the future. Ming Shu completed his mission, and a stone in his heart was lifted. I hope Miss Shangguan has time to visit the Treasure Pavilion more often. Chu Luiwei smiled and nodded. You're too polite, this is what I should do. He then took his leave. After he left, Xiao Ran looked at Chu Luiwei again. TSK. I really don't know what expression those people will have when they know about this. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows slightly. What they think is their business, it has nothing to do with me. Xiao Ran made a tisk sound. Little girl, you're so young, but you're so insightful. It's rare. Chu Luiwei kept the jade boxes and changed the topic. Didn't you say before that I can ask you if I don't understand anything? Xiao Ran looked vigilant. You want to compare Xian formations with me? But with your current status, you can't do that casually, right? Ordinary Xian formations were fine, but those top Xian formations were extremely precious. If she fought, she would inevitably reveal some things. From the moment the Treasure Pavilion chose her, she was restricted in this aspect. Chu Luiwei smiled and shook his head. That's not it. I still know the rules of the Treasure Pavilion. What I want to ask is another thing. You've been in the Illusory God Palace for so many years. Have you seen the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix? Chapter 2231. Xiao Ran paused. Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix? I've never seen it before. Why are you asking this? Disappointment flashed across Chu Luiwei's eyes. Nothing, I'm just curious. Ever since she saw Jin Yunlai holding the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix's feather at the Heavenly Gate, she felt that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan should have some connection with the Illusion God Palace. After finding out that Yi Zhao was trapped in the lightning pool, she was even more certain of her guess. Xiao Ran was considered an old member of the Illusion God Palace. He had been here for a long time and seemed to know a lot of things. Chu Luiwei wanted to come here and see if she could find some clues. But it seemed that this path wouldn't work. Xiao Ran stared at her with a serious expression. You'd better not mention the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix in the Illusion God Palace in the future. Chu Luiwei frowned. Why? Because the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is guilty. Xiao Ran raised his chin, looked at the distant Illusory God Palace, and said, Tens of thousands of years ago, the ancestor of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was the divine beast of the Illusion God Palace. It was respected and loved. But for some reason, it betrayed and ran away, almost burning half of the Illusion God Palace. It was also at that time that the Illusion God Palace suffered a great loss. Several divine envoys died together and the entire Illusion God Palace was in turmoil. It took about 10,000 years for the Illusion God Palace to be restored and a new divine envoy was chosen. Everything gradually calmed down. But since then, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan became a sinful clan. The people of the Illusion God Palace also understood and didn't mention it again. He looked at Chu Luiwei. You can ask me what you said today, but if someone hears it, I'm afraid it'll cause some trouble. Chu Luiwei was stunned for a long time. So there's such a past? Xiao Ran nodded. Due to this reason, even though the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix was one of the two ancient divine beasts, it wasn't welcomed here. Don't mention it again. Chu Luiwei closed his eyes and pursed his lips. Not mentioning it? She had a contract with Dumpling and planned to save Yizhao. There was no way she could avoid this trouble. Xiao Ran saw her strange expression and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Chu Luiwei shook his head. "It's nothing. I'm just a little surprised by these things. Thank you for your advice, Senior Xiao Ran. I'll go back first." Xiao Ran noticed that she was in a bad mood, so he didn't ask her to stay. Chu Luiwei turned around and left. On the way back, Chu Luiwei walked very slowly. As she walked, she conversed with Dumpling in her mind. "Dumpling, do you know what Senior Xiao Ran said just now?" Dumpling looked confused. "I don't know." Chu Luiwei frowned slightly. If this was true, logically speaking, it was impossible for there to be no records of it in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. And as the young master, Dumpling could not know. But Xiao Ran's words didn't seem to be fake. He had no reason to lie about such things. Moreover, it was related to the Illusory God Palace and several divine envoys. How could anyone dare to create such rumors? Chu Luiwei recalled that she had a conversation with the aura left behind by that ancestor in the Phoenix Shrine. If what Xiao Ran said was true, then that person actually died in the Illusory God Palace back then. Also, there was Mao Jin. When he mentioned the Illusory God Palace and the ancestor of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, he also looked like he wanted to say something but stopped. Could it be because of this? Chu Luiwei felt as if she had fallen into a swamp and couldn't break free no matter how hard she tried. Too many mysteries appeared one after another and intertwined with each other, making it difficult for her to distinguish. Could it be that the ancestor's golden feather was left behind back then? She guessed with some uncertainty. If that was the case, things could be explained. What happened back then? Why did the ancestor of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan betray the Illusory God Palace? Chu Luiwei raised her eyes and looked at the majestic palace. She was more eager than ever to go in and find out what was going on. "You? They said I'm a sinner. Does that mean I can't come out in the future?" Dumpling asked in a low voice. Chu Luiwei sighed softly. Now she was glad that she didn't let Dumpling come out before. Otherwise, it might really cause some trouble. Not necessarily. She thought carefully and shook her head. Song Qing and the others all know that you're my contracted magical beast. This matter can't be hidden. I just don't know what the divine envoys of the Illusory God Palace will think about this. Dumpling felt wronged. I haven't done anything yet. How can I be guilty? Besides, if my ancestor really betrayed the Illusory God Palace, then there must be something wrong with the Illusory God Palace. Chu Luiwei thought. Back in the Red Moon Desert, after the eye took Dumpling away, it didn't punish her with ordinary means. Instead, it forcibly opened her meridians. It seemed it couldn't wait to let Dumpling break through. If the owner of the eye was from the Illusory God Palace, it didn't seem like it wanted to punish a sinner. Anyway, during this period of time, stay well. Don't come out if there's no special situation. No one knew what had happened back then. It was useless to argue about this now. Dumpling snorted. Then I'll listen to Ayu. On the other side, Mu Dongyu returned to the Illusory God Palace. In front of the Black Jade Square, The man was still standing quietly with his hands behind his back. Mu Dongyu stood a few steps behind him and presented a fist-sized golden translucent ball in her hands. There seemed to be a sparkling liquid inside, which was glowing faintly. "It's all here." The man standing in front of her raised his wrist, and the golden ball flew out of Mu Dongyu's hands and arrived in front of him. He flicked his finger, and the ball of light turned into several streams of light and flew to the white jade pillars around the black jade square. Puff! On it, the golden flames burned even more fiercely. Seeing this scene, the man shook his head. Although he has opened the 7th meridian, his bloodline power is still somewhat inferior. Mu Dongyu was a little helpless. But he's the patriarch. This is the best solution we can find at present. Forget it, let's make do for now. The man shook his head and asked, "How's the situation at the lightning pool recently?" Mu Dongyu said, "Everything is normal. It's just that someone accidentally broke into the forbidden area yesterday." The man turned around. "Shangguan Yu?" Mu Dongyu wasn't surprised that he knew about this. After all, everyone in the illusory god palace knew that she had broken into the deepest part of the lightning pool. "That's right. But don't worry, I've already chased her away in time and warned her not to come close again." The man chuckled and asked, "That's right. How do you know that she did it unintentionally?" Mu Dongyu was stunned. Chapter 2232. This news about the forbidden lightning pool has always been tightly sealed. She just came to the illusion god palace, so she shouldn't know, right? Mu Dongyu recalled the girl's sincere expression and felt that there was nothing to doubt. Also, she doesn't have a bloodline totem. She should leave soon. I thought so at first, but now I don't think so. Do you know that the Precious Treasure Pavilion has already invited her to copy Xian formations? The man said lightly. Mu Dongyu was shocked. Precious Treasure Pavilion? They actually chose her? Just 2 days ago. Just this point alone is enough for her to stay for a long time. The man paused for a moment and said, "You've already seen her. How do you feel?" Mu Dongyu thought for a moment and said honestly, "If she has a bloodline totem, her future will be limitless. Seems like you quite like her." "She is indeed very talented." Mu Dongyu shook her head regretfully. "What's even more valuable is that her divine body came from the god-destroying tribulation. Among all the cultivators in the illusion god palace, there are probably not many who can compete with her in terms of divine body. Because of this, she can easily reach the depths of the lightning pool. This kind of talent, this kind of opportunity, all gathered on one person. It's very rare. Now that you mention it, I do want to meet her." The man smiled. After thinking for a moment, he shook his head. "But since the Precious Treasure Pavilion wants to protect her, forget it. You can go back. You still need to guard the lightning pool." "Got it." Shi Jing came to the lightning pool. He stood on the shore and looked into the distance. Countless heavenly thunders roamed within, flashing with dazzling light. Shi Jing opened his eyes slightly and clicked his tongue. Big Brother didn't lie to him. This is really a good place. He took a deep breath and strode forward. Quite a number of people around him noticed him. Of course, it was mainly because his face was too unfamiliar to them. Also, he had a Tuan XNZ on his waist. "Who's this? I've never seen him before. He seems to be new too. The 7th Divine Envoy just let him in. Why does he have a Tuan XNZ? I heard that they're from Shangguan Yu. Why is it her people again? How many people without bloodline totems did she bring in?" "Hey, don't say that." He had relied on his own abilities to reach this position, so he could be considered to have some ability. "Did you see that? She's also a god. So what if she's Her Eminence? There's still no hope." Plot. Shi Jing did not pay attention to those people. With a leap, he directly jumped into the lightning pool. The surrounding heavenly thunder quickly rushed toward him. Mitsui laughed and headed deeper into the cave without hesitation. After a while, he stopped somewhere and looked around before blurting out, "Why are there so few Tianlei here?" As soon as the words left his mouth, he immediately realized that something was wrong. He had never been here before. How would he know that Tianlei was less crowded than before? Mitsui frowned. Buzz buzz. The hammer at his waist trembled slightly. He lowered his head to take a look at it, then took it off. Then, he came to a reef and stared at it for a long time with a conflicted expression. Can't be. After hesitating for a long time, he finally clenched the hammer in his hand and smashed it at the reef. Bang! The reef shattered. Several bolts of silver heavenly thunder surged out from within. Shijing's eyes widened. Damn! Chapter 2233. Si Jing grabbed one of the Tianlei and stuffed it back in. When the other Tianlei saw this, they ran even faster. Come back, come back. Si Jing knew that something was wrong. He moved his hands and grabbed a lot of Tianlei. Seeing that the rock had already shattered, he hurriedly picked up another rock from the side and directly plugged the hole that had broken open. The Tianlei inside finally stopped running out. Most of the ones that had spilled out were caught by him. Only a few ran out without a trace and quickly disappeared into the surrounding sea of lightning. Phew, that scared me to death. Si Jing let out a long sigh of relief. His back was covered in cold sweat. This thing is really strange. Didn't he just smash the hammer once? So many Tianlei came out just like that. When he broke through in the past, he didn't even summon so many Tianlei. After staring for a while and making sure that the Tianlei inside were obedient and didn't come out, he finally felt relieved. He looked around. Fortunately, no one saw him. For some reason, he felt that he couldn't let anyone know about this. He picked up the hammer and walked to the side. This lightning pool wasn't bottomless. There were continuous reefs and peaks at the shore and bottom. The one he had just smashed was just the tip of the iceberg. Even so, it still gave him a great fright. He had just come to the Illusion God Palace. What if he didn't do something right and cause trouble for his master? Thinking of this, he put the hammer away. After walking for a while, he stood still again and looked at the large reefs in front of him hesitantly with a conflicted expression. After a while, he clenched his teeth and patted it. Buzz, buzz. A wave came from inside. The hammer at his waist started to move again. Behave. He let out a low growl, and the hammer instantly quieted down. Then, he realized that the restless sounds from the reefs under his hand seemed to have disappeared. Si Jing's eyes lit up. This thing is interesting. In the room, Chu Luiwei was refining medicine. Within the heavenly square cauldron, the transparent karmic fire burned intensely. She methodically placed the medicinal herbs that she had prepared at the side in order. Many of the medicinal herbs were gradually refined, and a rich and bitter medicinal fragrance filled the room. Her eyes were fixed on the cauldron, and her mind was highly concentrated. This time, he was going to refine a grand physician-level pill. Ever since she had a breakthrough in the Red Moon Desert, she realized that she had memorized quite a number of prescriptions from great physicians. Fortunately, she was already used to being cheated by Dabeo, so she didn't feel too bad about it. In fact, she even felt that it was quite good. What could be more comfortable than finding out that you've already done the relevant cultivation when you want a breakthrough? Time passed slowly. Chu Liuyue's refining speed was much faster than before. A few hours later, all the medicinal ingredients were finally refined. A scarlet gold flame gushed out from her palm and poured into the heavenly square medicine cauldron to carry out the final pill formation. Condense! With a clear shout, 2 layers of flames rapidly surged up. A pill intertwined with scarlet and silver slowly took shape. Chu Liwei clapped her hands lightly, and the pill quickly flew toward her. She took out a jade bottle that she had prepared beforehand and placed the pill inside. Then, she put away the item and pushed the door open. Chang Wanzhou was cultivating in his room. He sat cross-legged and his eyes were lightly closed. Vigorous divine power flowed continuously in his body, accompanied by a bone-chilling power of extreme cold. His entire body was covered in a thin layer of frost. His hair, eyebrows, and even his thick and long eyelashes were all crystal clear white frost. His rose-like lips were slightly pale. Wisps of white mist emanated from his body. That was the cold air in his body that was still leaking out. The color of the words on the round letter, hanging from his waist, was also gradually becoming more and more intense. When Chu Luiwei entered, she saw such a scene. Her brows furrowed slightly. As if he heard movement, Chang Wanzhou slowly opened his eyes. When he saw that it was Chu Luiwei, he immediately woke up. He got up and went forward to greet her, while at the same time holding the letter. "Master!" Chu Luiwei handed over the jade bottle in her hand. "Adversity Breaker Pill. It should help you dissolve part of the extreme cold power." Chang Wanzhou took the item. "Thank you, Master." Chu Luiwei raised her chin. "See how the pill works. If it works, I'll send you more later." Chang Wanzhou clenched the jade bottle in his hand tightly, pursed his lips, and didn't say anything. He only nodded, then poured out the adversity breaker pill and swallowed it. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Chang Wanzhou only felt a burning sensation rising from his throat. This burning sensation quickly rushed to his limbs and bones. His originally fair and clear face instantly flushed red, as if all the blood had rushed up to his head. Bang! The jade bottle in his hand suddenly fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. And his body seemed to have been drained of all strength, falling uncontrollably to the ground. "Little Zhou!" Chu Luiwei was shocked and immediately went forward to help him up. Just as she touched his hand, she couldn't help but shiver. It was so cold. Looking down, she saw that the skin on the back of his hand was suffused with a strange blood-red color, but it was also condensed with a layer of ice. This was not the same as ordinary frost. It was several times colder. She immediately turned Chang Wanzhou's wrist over, put two fingers together, and separated a stream of force from her body, and poured it into his Yuan meridian. She immediately sucked in a breath of cold air when she saw what it was. The seal in Chang Wanzhou's body was suddenly broken, and the accumulated extreme cold power from before had lost its suppression and crazily rushed out. In a short period of time, it was like a flood, fiercely colliding. His body couldn't withstand such an attack. "What's wrong with your seal?" She looked up at Chang Wanzhou and asked anxiously. Chang Wanzhou clenched his teeth and shook his head, but he couldn't say a single word. In reality, the seal had already loosened. As his strength increased, the power of the seal also gradually decreased. After coming to the illusory god palace, there were several times when he felt that the seal was about to break. It was only with Sun Yi's help that it was barely suppressed. But he didn't expect that the adversity-breaking pill that Chu Luiwei sent would unintentionally break this weak balance. As a result, the seal was broken, and the extreme cold power that had been suppressed began to surge out. Chu Luiwei quickly realized that now wasn't the time to ask about this. At this time, Chang Wanzhou's aura was also rapidly rising. The tongue at his waist was about to explode. Chapter 2234. Chu Luiwei then split out a portion of her force and sent it into Chang Wanzhou's body, wanting to forcefully suppress this extremely cold force. However, she soon realized that it was already too late. The power of extreme frost had already spread throughout Chang Wanzhou's body and seeped into his muscles, bones, and flesh at an astonishing speed. The ice on his body was still gradually condensing and accumulating. At that moment, Sun Yi suddenly walked in from outside. Chu Luiwei turned to look at him. "Sun Yi, the seal in little Zhou's body has been broken." Sun Yi frowned slightly and walked over to Chang Wanzhou's side. His gaze quickly swept past Tuan Xinzi at Chang Wanzhou's waist. Then, he said in a low voice, "I'm afraid it won't be possible to forcefully seal him now. Then, it's better to let him go. As long as he can convert all the frost energy into his own, he'll be able to get out of this crisis." Chu Luiwei's pupils constricted. "You're saying that we should let little Zhou break through to become a god?" Sun Yi nodded. "Didn't you have this plan before, mistress? Now is the best opportunity." Chu Luiwei clenched her teeth and frowned. "I did have this idea, but it definitely won't be like this." Chang Wanzhou had broken through to become a god a long time ago. From what Chu Luiwei knew about him, his strength had been rising rapidly. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before he could attempt to become a god. But now, this was too sudden. The threshold to becoming a god wasn't easy to cross. Even those who were fully prepared might not succeed in the end, let alone Chang Wanzhou's current situation. The frost energy was wreaking havoc in his body. If he wasn't careful, he might. In this situation, no one can help him. He can only rely on himself. Sun Yi's expression was as calm as ever. Chu Luiwei was caught in a dilemma. Of course, she knew that Sun Yi was right. If Chang Wanzhou absorbed the energy himself, no one knew how much of an impact it would have on his body, or if he could withstand it. However, if she didn't do that, Chang Wanzhou would still be in great danger. After all, the frost energy had already gone out of control. Suddenly, Chu Luiwei felt Chang Wanzhou's wrist move. She turned her head. Chang Wanzhou's head was slightly lowered, and his entire body was trembling slightly. Blood was surging all over his face, and only his lips were deathly pale. He gritted his teeth and enunciated each word clearly. I can break through to become a god. Although his voice was soft, it was not to Chu Luiwei's determination. After a while, she nodded. All right, I'll stand guard for you. Was to Wanzhou's of the frost energy of the frost of the Xianxias, to turn to Zin's. Sun Yi glanced at him with a deep gaze. Then he looked at Chu Luiwei. Master, it's better for me to take care of this matter. He still needs some time to break through to become a god. Also, he might need some pills to nourish his Yuan meridian. Chu Luiwei immediately understood Sun Yi's meaning. You're right. Unlike others, Chang Wanzhou wanted to use the frost energy to temper himself and improve his strength. Even if he succeeded in the end, in the process, the extreme cold energy would cause a certain amount of damage to his body. When that happened, he would need to recuperate. Suddenly, she frowned. I'm afraid ordinary pills won't work. Chang Wanzhou's constitution was special to begin with. Ordinary pills would be useless if he wanted to recuperate his body. Mistress, I know a prescription that can help him recuperate. Little Hachi had arrived at the door. Chu Luiwei looked at her. What is it? The stabilizing pill. Little Hachi blinked and then shrugged helplessly. Although I have the prescription, I don't have many of the herbs listed. Also, Mistress, this is a pill at the level of a supreme doctor. She could go to the treasure pavilion to ask for the herbs. But she hadn't reached the level of a supreme doctor yet, and this was difficult. Chu Luiwei thought for a moment and said, Give me the prescription. Give me the prescription. I'll think of something. Little 8 took out a bunch of prescriptions and picked through them before finally finding them. Here, this is it. Chu Luiwei took the prescription and quickly looked through it. You guys stay here and guard the small boat. I'll go out first. With that, she left in a hurry. Only when her figure disappeared did Sun Yi look at Little Hachi and say calmly, This is what you should do. Little Hachi shrunk her neck guiltily. Big brother, it's really not my problem. It's that stabilizing pill. It's very difficult. Also, I haven't even seen the herbs in the prescription, let alone refine them. Sun Yi narrowed his eyes. Even Peach Blossom Cove doesn't have it? Little Hachi pursed her red lips. Third brother does have it, but it's pitifully little. Even if he brings it all back, it's at most enough to refine one pill. You know how stingy he is. How could he bear to give it to me? Now that they were in the Illusion God Palace, it was too late to go down and find Sanson. Also, it wasn't worth it. Who could guarantee that this pill could be successfully refined in one try? Actually, when I went to Herb Mountain last time, I vaguely saw some. But that 8th Divine Envoy refused to let us go over and didn't let us take the things, so we had no choice. We can only place our hopes on Mistress. Sun Yi lowered his eyes and finally sighed. Got it. You can leave first. Why? I'll stay here and watch over him with Big Brother. It just so happens that I've always been interested in the cold energy in his body. Before she finished speaking, she felt Sun Yi's gaze land on her. Just as her butt touched the stool, she tactfully stood up and said with a smile, Big brother, you're busy. I'll go stand guard outside. With that, she floated out. Xin Yi raised his hand and set up a barrier in the room. With the suppression of this power, Tuanxinzi at Chang Wanzhou's waist quietly retracted its aura. Chu Luiwei quickly arrived at the treasure pavilion. Seeing her, Ming Shu hurriedly put down the account book in his hand and went to welcome her. Miss Shangguan, how did you find the time to come here today? Could it be that you're here to copy the Xian formation? Chu Luiwei saw through his thoughts and lightly shook her head. I came here today to buy some herbs. Xin Yi chuckled. You're welcome. What do you want? Just tell me. Chu Luiwei handed over the prescription. Ming Shu took it with both hands. After glancing at it, his brows furrowed. His expression was a bit awkward. Miss Shangguan, I'm really sorry. There's one thing on this list that our treasure pavilion doesn't have. Chapter 2235. You don't have it either? Chu Luiwei was very surprised. Cheng coughed and explained. Miss Shangguan, you don't know. This crouching dragon carom is extremely precious and can be considered a top medicinal herb. Anyone who wants it has to go to Herb Mountain personally and get the approval of the 8th divine emissary. Chu Luiwei felt that it was ridiculous. Although the crouching dragon carom is rare, it doesn't need to be like this. The Peach Blossom Dock also had it, but it was rare. The Illusion God Palace had it on Herb Mountain. Why did it have to be so complicated? Ming Shu was also in a difficult position. This is the rule set by the 8th divine emissary. It has been like this for many years. Also, because everyone can only get a limited amount, very few people are willing to send it to Treasure Pavilion to trade. Naturally, we don't have it here. Chu Luiwei sneered. So the divine emissary is also interested in monopolizing. Although she hadn't met the 8th divine emissary, she had a rough idea of what kind of person he was. Previously, she didn't pay much attention to Little Hachi's complaints. Now, it seemed that she had underestimated the 8th divine emissary's control of Herb Mountain. Qing quickly said, Miss Shangguan, if you need it urgently, why don't I go to Herb Mountain personally? Chu Liuyue's lips curved up into a smile, but she rejected his suggestion. Thank you for your kindness, Lord Ming Shu, but it's not convenient for you to do this. It's better for me to go myself. A considerable part of Treasure Pavilion's income was blocked from Herb Mountain. She guessed that they didn't have a good relationship with the 8th divine emissary. If Ming Shu went personally, things would become more troublesome. Cheng was still worried. Although this person was quite famous in the Illusion God Palace recently, breaking Mu Yafeng's record on the Star Path and entering the deepest part of the lightning pool. But the 8th divine emissary didn't buy it. What if she went over and the 8th messenger didn't have eyes and wronged her? Do you want me to find someone to go with you? Chu Luiwei shook her head and smiled. Don't worry, I know what to do. With that, she turned around and left. Ming Shu wanted to follow her, but after some thought he went up to the 2nd floor. What? Madam went to Herb Mountain? Yen Gu, who was lying in his room and feeling so bored that grass was about to grow, opened one of his eyes when he heard this. You explained the situation briefly, feeling very nervous. It's not just the crouching dragon carom. There are also some other special herbs that the 8th divine emissary guards very tightly. Isn't peacemaking money? Our Zhen Bao Pavilion has never had the intention to touch these things. Who knew that Madam would come today to ask for it? Yen Gu thought for a while, closed his eyes and waved his hand lazily. It's fine, it's fine. With our Madam's talent and strength, it won't be a problem for her to ask for a few stalks of hidden dragon fruit. Ming Shu was stunned. Second Master, you mean? Madam is also quite talented in alchemy? What do you mean by rather talented? Do you know how to speak properly? Yen Gu snorted in disdain. Madam, you're not even 20 yet, but you're already a senior physician. It's only a matter of time before you break through to become a senior physician. Is this something that ordinary people can compare to? Yu was shocked at first, then the corner of his mouth twitched. It was indeed very rare to be able to break through to the rank of Grand Physician at this age. But how could it be so easy to become a senior physician? Moreover, Madame didn't have a bloodline totem. The 8th divine emissary's attitude wouldn't be good just because of the clump of tongues hanging on her waist. The second master was really too careless. Second master, you know what kind of personality the 8th divine emissary has. If Madame goes there herself, isn't it obvious that she's going to bully her? It's fine if Madame can successfully get the crouching dragon fruit, but if she doesn't and is provoked by the 8th divine emissary. Yen Gu suddenly laughed. Xu Jing's personality is indeed very annoying. In the end, the herb mountain doesn't belong to her. She's just in charge of guarding it. How could she have the qualifications to set so many rules? That's true, but she's the 8th divine emissary after all. With her current status, it's really easy for her to do something to Madame. Madame finally came to the illusory god palace. If she suffers any grievances, Yu was still very worried. Yen Gu picked up the teacup beside him and blew on it leisurely. When he heard this, it was as if he had heard a joke. Our Madame isn't someone who's willing to suffer grievances. Besides, the first master has been coaxing Madame in all sorts of ways both openly and secretly. He can't bear for her to suffer any grievances. How could Xu Jing have the right to behave so atrociously here? If she's sensible and knows that Madame has the support of Zhenbao Pavilion, she won't make things difficult for Madame. If she's not sensible, then it only proves that she's really tired of living. She was able to dominate the herb mountain for so many years only because the first master's thoughts are on Madame and can't be bothered to argue with her. Now, why don't you let her try to offend Madame? Yen Gu took a sip of tea and narrowed his eyes in satisfaction. TSK. Just wait and see. Chu Luiwei headed straight for the herb mountain. She was extremely fast and arrived at the place in no time. The air was filled with the smell of various herbs, which intertwined into a unique fragrance that was rich and slightly bitter. Taking a deep breath, it instantly refreshed one's mind and refreshed one's spirit. Chu Luiwei stood in midair and looked down. Looking at the continuous mountain range, as well as the various medicinal herbs growing on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain, even though she had long heard of it, it still caused her to exclaim in admiration. The illusion god palace was indeed extravagant. She looked around and quickly saw a field of crouching dragon carrots growing on a mountain peak in the distance. With a thought, she headed forward. However, at this moment, a barrier suddenly appeared in front of her and blocked her path. Immediately after, a cold and arrogant female voice sounded. Who's trespassing on the herb mountain? Chu Luiwei narrowed her eyes and looked forward. A young woman suddenly appeared. The moment she saw her, Chu Luiwei immediately understood the other party's identity. The 8th Oracle, Xu Jing. Chapter 2236. Xu Jing was also sizing up the woman in front of her. She looked no more than 18 or 19 years old. Her face was incomparably beautiful, and her red dress and black hair fluttered in the wind. There was a hint of nobility and valiance in her eyes that people would not forget and subconsciously revere. There had never been such a person in the illusion god palace before. Seeing the letter at her waist, Xu Jing's eyes revealed a hint of realization. You're Shangguan Yu? Chu Luiwei nodded. Greetings, 8th divine emissary. Xu Jing sized her up calmly. She had broken through to the god realm at such a young age. She was indeed quite capable. It was said that she was also extremely talented as a mystic cultivator and had even been chosen by the treasure pavilion. Thinking of the treasure pavilion, Xu Jing felt a hint of displeasure. What are you doing here? She asked mildly. Chu Luiwei immediately smiled. 8th divine emissary, this is Herb Mountain. I'm naturally here to take medicinal herbs. Xu Jing paused and said, You should know the rules of Herb Mountain, right? This little Hachi has already mentioned it to me, so I naturally know. Hearing this, Xu Jing frowned slightly. Chu Liuyue's expression and tone were fine, but for some reason, her words made people feel uncomfortable. After all, She also disliked that little Hachi very much. Since you know, then it's easy. If you want to enter Herb Mountain, you have to exchange for a Grand Physician's pill. Otherwise, it's already prepared. Chu Luyue interrupted her with a faint smile. With a flick of her wrist, a jade box flew out. Eighth Divine Emissary, please take a look. Shu Jing raised her hand and caught the item. She opened the jade box and took a look. After confirming that it was indeed a Grand Physician's pill, she finally nodded. With a light wave of her sleeve, the barrier in front of Chu Luyue instantly dissipated. Chu Luyue thanked him and headed in a certain direction. Shu Jing looked back and saw that Chu Luyue seemed to be heading for the Fulongko. He frowned. Wait. Chu Luyue hadn't had time to pick up the crouching dragon cordon when he heard this sound. He paused and looked up. Eighth Oracle, do you have any other orders? Shu Jing's figure flashed and appeared in front of her again. You want to take the crouching lonko? Yes. No. Shu Jing's face was covered with a layer of cold arrogance. The crouching dragon carom is a top-grade medicinal ingredient. Ordinary people can't use it casually. Chu Luyue's eyes flickered. The Eighth Oracle. A familiar voice sounded. Chu Luyue turned around and saw Liang He rushing over. He was holding a pile of medicinal herbs in his arms. At a rough glance, there were about 5 or 6 stalks of crouching dragon carrots. The other herbs were also quite precious. It seemed that he had just come from the nearby mountain range. When Chu Luyue turned around, Liang He inadvertently glanced at her and noticed her. He paused and nodded at Chu Luyue. But his expression seemed a little cold. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows slightly. She didn't seem to have offended Liang He. Was it because little Hachi had been ignoring him? But it didn't seem to be to that extent. Eighth Oracle, these are the medicinal herbs I need to approve this time. Please take a look. Shu Jing glanced at it and a rare smile appeared on his face. Are you preparing to refine the vigor-stabilizing pill? Liang He nodded. Sure enough, I can't hide anything from you. I've been studying the vigor-stabilizing pill for a while and I plan to try it this time. Because the prescription is complicated, I specially took a few more sets of medicinal herbs. The vigor-stabilizing pill is one of the most complicated pills among the supreme doctors. Even experienced people may not be able to guarantee success. It's only right for you to make so many preparations. Shu Jing's attitude towards Liang He was obviously much better than Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue heard this and smiled. Eighth Oracle, what a coincidence. I came here to take the crouching dragon carrot this time to refine the vigor-stabilizing pill. As soon as he finished speaking, Shu Jing and Liang He were both silent for a moment before they looked over with strange expressions. Shu Jing sneered in his heart and raised his eyebrows. Are you a supreme doctor? No. Chu Luyue said honestly. I just became a senior doctor not long ago. The smile on Shu Jing's face deepened, but his eyes were full of ridicule. She wasn't even a supreme doctor, yet she dared to say that she wanted to refine the vigor-stabilizing pill? How ridiculous! Then you don't have the right to take away the crouching dragon carrot. Chu Luyue raised her voice slightly. Then why can Liang He? Shu Jing glanced at her. He is a supreme doctor, aren't you? So only a supreme doctor can take away the crouching dragon carrot? Chu Luyue asked. Of course. Shu Jing finished speaking and was about to leave. You can only stay here for a limited time. You'd better find some herbs as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll have come here for nothing. Shu Jing took a few steps, then suddenly stopped and turned around. By the way, don't try to take away the crouching dragon carrot by other means. The entire herb mountain is under my control. If there's any movement, I'll immediately notice it. Once I find out that someone is stealing, the consequences are extremely serious. Do you understand? Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows slowly and smiled faintly. This eighth oracle's words were really unpleasant to hear. Seeing that Shu Jing was about to leave, Chu Luyue suddenly said. Shu Jing was a little impatient. What else do you want? Chu Luyue's lips curved up. I really need this crouching dragon carrot. Since Liang he also wants to try to refine the vigor-stabilizing pill, why don't we compare notes here and let the 8th oracle be the judge to show fairness? If I succeed, I can take away the vigor-stabilizing pill. If I fail, I promise that I will never step into Herb Mountain again. What do you think, 8th oracle? Even many sovereign doctors who have been famous for a long time do not dare to go against him. What is Shangguan Yu thinking? Why is she challenging him? I heard that this matter doesn't have much to do with Liang He. Shangguan Yu wanted to take the crouching dragon cordon, but the 8th divine envoy didn't agree. Shangguan Yu proposed to refine the foundation fixing pill here. Foundation fixing pill? Even Liang He hasn't succeeded in refining it, right? Shangguan Yu dares to do this. Is she also a sovereign doctor? Of course not. She personally told the 8th divine envoy that she had just become a grand doctor not long ago. She is still far from becoming a sovereign doctor. Then where does her confidence come from? We don't know. Also, I heard that if she doesn't succeed this time, she won't come to Herb Mountain again. The 8th divine envoy also agreed. I think there will be a good show to watch this time. Chu Luiwei and Liang He stood facing each other on a relatively flat mountain. Xu Jing stood at the side and glanced at Chu Luiwei. I'll say it again. You only have one chance. Once you fail, the competition will be over immediately. She was sure that Chu Luiwei would be the first to lose. Chu Luiwei's lips curved up. 8th divine envoy, although I'm not a sovereign doctor, my ears and memory are quite good. You don't have to repeat some things. Xu Jing's face turned slightly green. However, there were many people around at this time, so she couldn't do anything. She sneered in her heart and looked away. Liang He glanced at them and shook his head helplessly. Then he took out a bronze cauldron. The bronze cauldron had 3 legs and 2 handles. It was engraved with auspicious clouds and strange beasts. It was heavy and majestic. It was a venerable divine artifact. Although venerable divine artifacts were common, cauldrons were very rare. Liang He was very talented. With the help of this cauldron, his chances of success were greatly increased. Liang He rarely uses this cauldron. It seems like he's serious this time. I heard that the foundation fixing pill is very difficult to refine. I guess Liang He can't make it, right? I'd like to see how Shangguan Yu will deal with it. Her level is not high enough. Bang! Chu Luiwei summoned the heavenly square cauldron with a thought. The whispers in the surroundings immediately dissipated. Even Xu Jing's eyes narrowed, and her expression was filled with surprise and uncertainty. After a while, someone said in a low voice, "Is that a divine artifact?" "I think so. I heard that she has more than one divine artifact. So, she has such a trump card. No wonder she's so confident. However, even if she has a divine artifact, I don't think she can refine a sovereign doctor-level pill, right? But she might lose in a better way?" A few people in the crowd laughed. Obviously, they didn't think highly of Chu Luiwei. However, Chu Luiwei didn't care about this. She summoned the transparent karmic fire in the heavenly square cauldron with a thought. Then, she started to put the herbs in one by one. Her movements were very smooth. When Liang He saw this, he no longer hesitated and attacked as well. In the main hall, Rong Xiu was sitting behind a table. He was writing something on a piece of paper. Umo was kneeling on one knee. That's about it. Now, many people in the Illusion God Palace know about it. Many people went to join in the fun. Rong Xiu's hand paused. Stabilizing pill? Yes. Umo secretly broke out in cold sweat. That person had just become a grand doctor not long ago. Now, she was trying to refine a sovereign doctor-level pill. Wasn't it obvious that she would lose? He didn't know what Xu Jing was thinking. He didn't even want to give her a few stalks of crouching dragon fruit. Wasn't he looking for trouble for himself? Hearing that Rong Xiu was silent again, Umo quickly looked up and mustered his courage to ask, "Master, should I send someone to send the crouching dragon fruit over?" "No need." Rong Xiu continued to write. It was too late now. There was no point in sending it over. Uemo quieted down. In this main hall, there was no other sound except the sound of the brush on the paper. Uemo felt a little cold. He sneaked a peek up the stairs. Is Master angry? Well, Shu Jing didn't know what to do. He thought for a moment and asked, Master, why don't I go and talk to Shu Jing? After a while, Rong Xiu finally stopped writing. He raised his head and looked over. His phoenix eyes were deep and cold. Go and tell her that she doesn't want to be the 8th oracle. There are many people who can replace her. Chapter 2238. Yumo's heart skipped a beat. He lowered his head and said, yes. In the courtyard, little Hachi was sitting on a stone bench, counting the herbs in her hands. These were all taken from the treasure pavilion, so they were naturally of excellent quality. It was just that the quantity was a little low. She hadn't done much yet, but she had already seen the end of it. Thinking of her elder brother's instructions, she wrinkled her nose and snorted. Not everyone was as perverted as him. After tidying everything up, she turned to look at Chang Wanzhou's room. The door was tightly shut. Perhaps because Tsin Yi had set up a barrier, Chang Wanzhou's attempt to break through to the supreme god level didn't cause too much of a commotion. Thus, it didn't attract any attention for the time being. More than 4 hours had passed. She didn't know what was going on inside. Little Hachi, Master hasn't returned yet? Hua Shuang walked over and asked curiously. Little Hachi shook her head. Not yet. That's not right. Master only went to the treasure pavilion to ask for some herbs. Why hasn't she returned yet? Hua Shuang frowned slightly. Little Hachi rested her chin on her hand. Maybe Master left her there to copy the Xian formation? Hua Shuang thought that it made sense, but after thinking about it carefully, she still felt that something was wrong. Little Zhou's situation is urgent. Logically speaking, Master shouldn't. She's at Herb Mountain. Don't you know? Xiao Ran's voice suddenly sounded. The two people in the courtyard turned around at the same time and saw Xiao Ran standing on the roof with his arms crossed, looking in their direction. Hua Shuang immediately asked. Senior Xiao Ran, you said that Master is at Herb Mountain right now? Xiao Ran nodded. That's right. It seems that you really don't know. Not only is she at Herb Mountain, but she's also competing with Liang He in alchemy. She even invited the 8th divine emissary to be the judge? Anyway, this matter has become quite big. Many people have gone there after hearing about it. Hua Shuang and little Hachi looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. They had already seen what kind of place Herb Mountain was and what kind of person the 8th divine emissary was. Why did Master suddenly go there? Could it be because of the herb's matter? Xiao Ran shook his head helplessly when he saw their reactions. In fact, they couldn't be blamed. Although this news had spread throughout the entire illusory god palace, almost no one was willing to come and tell them. Although Chu Luiyue had become very famous recently, none of them had a bloodline totem. Who would waste their time and energy to befriend someone who was destined to be kicked out of the illusory god palace in the near future? And these few people were also very strange. Ever since they came here, it seemed that they rarely went out. Little Hachi lifted her skirt, got up, and headed in the direction of the Herb Mountain. I'll go take a look. If that Shu Jing dared to disrespect her master, she would never let her off. Hua Shuang saw that she was about to rush over and fight, so she hurriedly stopped her. Little 8, it's better if I go. You stay here. Chang Wanzhou was preparing to break through to godhood, and his big brother was protecting him. The courtyard still had to be guarded. Let her go. You stay. Tsin Yi's voice came from the room. Hua Shuang was stunned. Little 8's lips curled into a charming smile. Second brother, big brother already let me go. Don't stop me? Hua Shuang could only shake her head helplessly. After you go, you have to promise to behave yourself. Little Hachi snorted and walked out. As long as that 8th divine envoy doesn't provoke me, I can't be bothered to argue with her. Hua Shuang watched her leave, then turned to look at the tightly shut door. She really couldn't understand why Tsin Yi let little Hachi go. But, He always had his own reasons for doing things. Nothing should happen. Xiao Ran asked with interest. Speaking of which, your master is really an all-rounder. Not only did she break through to godhood at such a young age, she was also a mystic cultivator. Her talent was so outstanding that even Zhenbao Pavilion thought highly of her. What was even more unexpected was that she was actually a doctor. Hua Shuangshuang laughed and didn't try to be humble. Our master has always been outstanding. Xiao Ran rubbed his chin. She actually has such amazing talent without a bloodline totem. This is really unheard of. He had stayed in the Illusion God Palace for so many years and had seen countless cultivators, all of whom were extremely talented. But compared to that little girl, they were much inferior. You offended the 8th divine envoy before? He asked casually. Hua Shuangshuang was startled. Senior Xiao Ran, why do you say that? If you don't have any grudges with her, she shouldn't have done this. Xiao Ran couldn't understand. There weren't many people who knew about the relationship between Chu Luiwei and Zhenbao Pavilion. But Xu Jing was the 8th divine envoy. How could he not know? Under such circumstances, she still did such a thing. Xiao Ran really couldn't think of any other explanation other than the fact that they already had a conflict. Hua Shuangshuang asked. After we came to the Illusion God Palace, we've been cautious and polite to everyone. How could we deliberately offend the 8th divine envoy? Wouldn't that be making things difficult for herself? Xiao Ran pondered. That's true. Then why did she do this? Hua Shuangshuang didn't say anything. He had seen Xu Jing once and naturally guessed that he didn't like them. But he didn't expect that they would actually offend his master this time. If Ming Shu was willing to step in, this matter would be easy to resolve. Unfortunately, Xiao Ran thought for a while and shook his head. Zhenbao Pavilion never participates in this kind of thing. This time, they probably won't interfere. I can only hope that the little girl will work hard and not be bullied too badly. Herb Mountain. On a mountain peak, Chu Luiwei and Liang He were refining medicine. Time passed slowly and the commotion around them gradually subsided. Many people looked at Chu Luiwei with eyes that were filled with disdain at the start, gradually turned serious and shocked. They saw that she was still continuously putting the herbs into the medicine cauldron. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water without any delay or slack. They finally gradually realized that Chu Luiwei's ability in refining medicine was far stronger than they had imagined. Is she really just a senior doctor? With this kind of technique and proficiency, she doesn't lose to Liang He at all. At first, I thought she was planning to imitate Liang He and try to refine the firmament pill, but now, it doesn't seem to be the case. She's one step faster than Liang He. Look, she's starting to prepare the Crouching Dragon Carom. The Crouching Dragon Carom was the most important ingredient in refining the firmament pill. Naturally, she had to be very careful. The slightest carelessness would cause the whole game to be lost and all previous efforts would be wasted. Chu Luiwei raised her hand and the only Crouching Dragon Carom flew into her hand. The Crouching Dragon Carom's stem was green and slender, with layers of petals at the top. It was bright gold and looked like a dragon's scale from afar. Chu Luiwei lowered her eyes and plucked a petal from the edge and threw it into the medicine cauldron. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.